Chapter 1337. At this moment, there was no sign of Kong Ingda in the marketplace or anywhere else. This meant that they could lock onto Kong Ingda's location. After all, they had gone up the mountain. In addition to the people they had brought with them, there were only about 3,000 people. If they were spread out, there would be loopholes. Thus, Chang Yaojin's arrangement seemed the most reasonable at this moment. However, the two of them had missed out on the paper mill. The moment the two of them went up the mountain, Kong Ingda once again followed the crowd and entered the street where the Hu merchants were. He knew that at this moment, there would be many people looking for him. However, he did not know that in the entire marketplace, other than the main street, there was basically no sign of the imperial guards or the Chang'an garrison, let alone in such a suffocating place. Kong Ingda did not return to the inn to find a mule. Instead, he found a group of Hu merchants who were preparing to leave the mountain. He only paid 1 ingot of silver for them to put him into the compartment of a carriage. On the other side, as soon as Chang Yaojin and Li Chengqian went up the mountain, they ran into Li Chengqian, who was preparing to go down the mountain. Seeing this, Li Chengqian asked in surprise, "Uncles, what are you doing here?" The two of them were startled. Yu Qigong hurriedly asked, "Has Fengzi been with you all this time?" Li Chengqian did not know what Yu Qigong meant, but seeing his extremely serious expression, he hurriedly said, "Yes, we've been together since this morning, and Fengzi has been. Let me ask you, has Kong Ingda gone up the mountain? HM?" Li Chengqian was instantly taken aback. He knew about Kong Ingda's matter yesterday, and he also knew about what had happened at the foot of the mountain. Now, he was going down the mountain to see what was going on. However, how could he have known that before he even went down the mountain he would run into this matter? He hurriedly said, "I heard about this matter last night, and I also made arrangements on the mountain. I am going down the mountain for this matter. How could I have known that I would run into the two of you here? Could it be that Kong Ingda has not gone up the mountain? Or could it be that there has been a mistake? Is he trying to set up a trap and then take the opportunity to return to Shandong?" Yu Qigong and Li Chengqian's expressions changed greatly. Yu Qigong hurriedly asked, "Are you saying that Kong Ingda has not gone up the mountain? Why would I joke about such a thing?" This time, Yu Qigong and Chang Yaojin were in a bit of a predicament. Kong Ingda had returned to Shandong, but why would he appear in the market? But if you really want to go back to Shandong, you can talk to the emperor about it. After all, the emperor would allow it, so there was no need to be so sneaky, right? Most importantly, this matter was too inconceivable. Not at the foot of the mountain. Not on the mountain either. Even if you said you were going back to Shandong, you wouldn't have to set up a maze on the mountain, would you? Thinking of this, Yu Qigong slapped his thigh and said, "Not good. He must have gone to the paper mill. Let's go to the paper mill." Thinking of this, Li Chengqian and Chang Yaojin's expressions instantly changed. Kong Ingda came from a landowning household in Shandong province and was also a doctor from the Imperial College. White Deer College had a cooperative relationship with the Imperial College. If he came to the paper mill with documents, the old village chief and Chen Wanli might not be able to stop him. Thinking of this, Li Chengqian also remembered that Chen Wanli had gone up the mountain just now. He hurriedly shouted, "Quickly go down the mountain. I'll go ask that kid Chen Wanli." An hour before you came, that kid came up the mountain. Originally, the old village chief also came with him. He said that he met an acquaintance. Thinking of this, Yu Qigong and Chang Yaojin couldn't stand still. They rushed down the mountain as if they were flying. They didn't know that this old thing really knew how to hide. He actually hid in that place. Why didn't he separate just now? This was great. They were dead meat. While the two of them were lost in their thoughts, Li Chengqian hurriedly returned to the farm. On the second floor of the farm, Zhang Feng was discussing something with Chen Wanli and the others. Seeing this, Li Chengqian hurriedly shouted, "Chen Wanli, did you just say that the old village chief met someone?" Because the distance wasn't very far, and Li Chengqian's voice was very loud, everyone in the laboratory looked over at this time. This was the first time they saw Li Chengqian so panicked. Zhang Feng held the railing in surprise, looked at Li Chengqian curiously, and asked, "What's wrong with you?" Were you chased by a dog? Li Chengqian ignored Zhang Feng and continued to ask, "Tell me, isn't it?" Chen Wanli was also a little confused, but he still nodded. "Yes, when we went up the mountain just now, we did see the old village chief meet someone. Did you hear that? What's that person's name?" "I heard the old village chief call him Kong Gong." Hearing this, Li Chengqian, who was running over here quickly, stopped in his tracks and asked in shock, "Are you sure?" Chen Wanli asked in a daze, but he still nodded. "I'm sure. The old village chief seemed to have asked him to go to the paper mill." It was over. Hearing this, Li Chengqian's expression changed greatly, and he hurriedly left again. This time, the people upstairs were even more dumbfounded. Zhang Feng looked at Li Chengqian blankly and asked, "Wanli, what's going on? Who is this Kong Gong?" How would Chen Wanli know who this person was? He smiled bitterly and spread out his hands. "I don't know either." Seeing this, Zhang Feng also didn't understand the situation, so he simply didn't care. He waved his hand and said, "Forget it. I don't care. I'll wait for you. When you're done with the things at hand, ask Ma Zhou and the others to come over from tomorrow. You guys focus on the second stage of the class and ask Tainyo and the others to teach you how to extract phosphate fertilizer." Chapter 1338. Of course, Yuchi Gong and the others didn't find anything. Furthermore, when he saw the old village chief and found out everything from him, his expression changed abruptly. They hurriedly went down the mountain with their men. "This old thing, what kind of person are you? Why did you tell everyone about it? Although it's not like we can't talk about it. Don't you know what happened to Kong Ingda yesterday?" After Yuchi Gong and the other man had left for a long time, the old village chief finally realized the big problem. He pulled out his hair anxiously. "Kong Ingda, you old bastard. How dare you come to old man's place to harm old man? Boys of Tonghui Lane, go, go, go. Block Kong Ingda's door. Old man is going to give him dog shit." The old village chief told them the whole story while everyone was still in a daze. This time, everyone was completely stunned. Who was Kong Ingda? He was a third-grade official in the imperial court. Yesterday, he was dismissed by the emperor because he wanted to impeach Zhang Feng. Last night, he couldn't think about it and came to the mountain to look for evidence. They couldn't help but turn around and curse Yuchi Gong and the other man. "You two bastards, why didn't you tell old man about what happened last night? How can you do things like this? This is simply preposterous. But what's the use of saying that now?" When the crowd angrily went to the sentry post on the mountain pass, they found that Kong Ingda had already left. This time, the people of Tonghui Lane, as well as the people who had been treated kindly by Zhang Feng, were all angry. They picked up their weapons and followed the old village chief angrily to Chang'an City. At the same time, in a tea house in the east of Chang'an City, naturally, everyone here knew Kong Ingda's identity. It was noon, the busiest time for the tea house. The storyteller between the second floor and the first floor was still talking about Zhang Feng's deeds. However, at this moment, a voice suddenly sounded. Kong Ingda took off the hat on his head and shouted coldly, "What do you think about that Zhang Feng? Or some purple star lord who has descended to the mortal world? Why don't you take a look at this?" Kong Ingda's voice instantly angered everyone. However, the moment they saw that it was Kong Ingda, everyone's heart skipped a beat. Then they prostrated themselves on the ground. Even the officials and nobles on the second floor, as well as the nobles and aristocratic families, were somewhat surprised. Although Kong Ingda had been ordered by the emperor to recuperate at home, he was not removed from his official position as the message in Chang'an said. Besides, he was a great Confucian scholar, so he deserved their respect. Kong Ingda didn't care about these empty words at this moment. He walked slowly to the storyteller's place between the second floor and the first floor as he took out an oiled paper package. "Just now, I heard you say that the dean of White Deer College, Chancellor Zhang Feng, and the great Confucian scholar of harmony, is Purple Star Lord who has descended to the mortal world?" The storyteller was not surprised. He cupped his fists and said, "That's right. This was divined by Master Yuan Tiangang himself." Kong Ingda nodded and slowly unwrapped the oiled paper package in his hand. He said, 3 days ago, I did have the same idea about this guy named Zhang Feng. He improved a lot of things in the Tang dynasty. First, he solved the drought in Longyu Road. Secondly, he solved the locust plague and the famine in Chang and city after the locust plague. These are all his achievements. These are great things. The crowd did not understand what he was trying to say. These were all things that everyone knew. However, they still listened to him carefully. After all, this was a great Confucian scholar. It was rare to see a great Confucian scholar tell a story in person. Besides, they could see it today, which was enough to show off for the rest of their lives. However, at this moment, Kong Ingda changed the topic. However, this was 3 days ago. I think everyone knows that the dean of White Deer College is proficient in medical skills. He even knows the blood-snatching life-changing method. He can even regenerate broken bones? Old man wants to ask who has seen the blood-snatching life-changing method. However, the one with the broken leg is real. This old man saw it with his own eyes yesterday. Furthermore, during the morning exercises yesterday, I also heard about a huge matter. In an instant, everyone's eyes widened. Very few people knew about this secret. However, the people on the second floor knew about it. At this moment, someone wanted to stop Kong Ingda, but he looked like a mad dog. No one dared to say anything. They could only listen quietly. However, it was different for the people. The blood-snatching life-changing method was passed down from the mountain. No one knew whether it was real or not, let alone the regenerating broken bones. However, Kong Ingda said that the regenerating broken bones was real. Could it be that this was real? However, the crowd thought too much. At this moment, Kong Ingda waited for the atmosphere to rise a little before saying, "Yesterday, Lord Zhangsun said in front of the emperor that Zhang Feng from White Deer College had developed something that could double the yield per mule." What? Chapter 1339. Now, everyone knew how much grain could be produced per mu. The people on the second floor. Basically, each family had at least a few dozen mu of land, and the peasant commoners on the first floor also had more or less fields. Some of the fields were given to the big families to grow food, and then according to the harvest, the main family would give them some food. The slightly better off families also had 2 or 3 mu of land. This was their capital to live a peaceful life. However, they were not rich and did not have much grain. This year, they suddenly encountered a grasshopper disaster and a food shortage. How could they have any grain? They lived frugally for this autumn planting so that they would not starve like this year. However, this was only so that they would not starve. As for the people on the second floor, they were already in an uproar. They came here because they knew some things in the imperial court. Therefore, they wanted to ask if these things were true. However, before they could ask, they heard more explosive news. How could they not be excited? Although they did not dare to spread the news about Kong Ingda in the imperial court yesterday, they could still circulate it internally. Generously, the news of Kong Ingda sneaking up the mountain last night, coupled with Kong Ingda's current attire, made everyone on the second floor understand instantly. All of this was real. At this moment, a voice that Kong Ingda was familiar with came from behind a screen in a private room on the second floor. "Duke Kong, is what you said true?" Although Kong Ingda did not see the person, he could tell from the voice that this person should be the minister of Taichung Temple. However, due to the current situation, he did not dare to show himself. However, he could not suppress the desire in his heart. Kong Ingda did not speak. Instead, he slowly opened the oiled paper bag in his hand and placed it on the storyteller's table. In an instant, everyone's eyes were attracted by the snow-colored thing. This thing was whiter than the fine salt, and even whiter than the snow. In an instant, everyone was in an uproar. Kong Ingda pointed at the thing on the table and said, "This thing. I'm afraid everyone wants to know what it is. But please allow old man to keep us in suspense. We'll talk about this later. Let's talk about what everyone knows first. I'm sure everyone knows about the news that came from White Deer College a few days ago, 3 days after its opening, right? Someone was looking for an iron mine, but he accidentally found something poisonous, and dozens of people died. You all should have heard a bit of the news, right? Chang and city wasn't big, so there were some things that couldn't be hidden even if one wanted to. Although Niu Jinda had walked around Chang and City, many people had still seen him. In addition, the people of Chang and City loved to wander around. Hence, everyone paid special attention to White Deer College. Therefore, everyone knew about this matter. But he didn't know what Kong Ingda meant. As for the people on the second floor, they were silent. This matter hadn't stopped since yesterday's court session. Even though the emperor didn't mention a word about it this morning, there were still more people talking about it. The more the emperor didn't mention it, the more people suspected it. Could it be the thing on the table? Did Kong Ingda want to die? Everyone on the second floor changed their expressions. They hurriedly covered their mouths and noses, and even those who had masks put them on. This made the people on the first floor panic. Kong Ingda said calmly, "That's right. This thing is the thing that poisoned them to death." In an instant, everyone was in an uproar when they heard the truth. However, there were some people in the crowd who were meticulous. Seeing that Kong Ingda was fine even though he was so close to that thing and was facing it calmly, they couldn't help but ask in surprise, "Kong Ingda, you already know that this thing is highly poisonous. Why didn't you avoid it?" "I didn't avoid it. Old man knows that after today, old man won't be able to keep his head. In that case, why would old man care about it? As long as I can expose their conspiracy, this old man will pay a visit to His Majesty later and present this thing to His Majesty personally. I will tell His Majesty everything I saw on the mountain today. I believe that His Majesty will make a decision." "Kong Ingda, you're really careless. But was this thing really the poisonous thing? But didn't you just say that this thing will increase the grain yield?" "What do you mean?" "Yes. I hope you can explain it to me, Kong Ingda." Seeing this, Kong Ingda grabbed a handful of phosphate fertilizer and said, "This thing is called phosphate fertilizer. People on the mountain said that once this thing is applied to the ground, it will increase the grain yield. But think about it. If it's poisonous, even if it can increase the grain yield, so what? After all, this thing is watered with poisonous things. No matter how fat the banker is, it will still be a poisonous thing. Instead, it will harm even more people. Now think about it. If this thing is really implemented, what will it be? It will kill all of us. This thing, even if it can produce thousands of caddies per moo, do you think we can eat it?" Hua! Chapter 1340. At this moment, everyone in the tea house was aghast. Yesterday, there was news from the palace, as well as the servants in the residences of the princes, dukes, and ministers. It was said that the news came from the political announcement hall that the dean of the White Deer Institute was researching something that could increase the supply of food. And the most important thing was, these things were said by the emperor himself. In the imperial court, Kong Ingda had been impeaching Zhang Feng and questioning Zhang Feng's shady dealings. In addition, he had heard that someone had broken his leg but was cured by Zhang Feng. But yesterday he had miraculously walked around Chang and even went to Zhang Feng's residence. No one knew what he was doing, but Kong Ingda happened to see him. That was why the emperor was enraged at the end. Logically speaking, no one would believe such a thing. But who was Zhang Feng? He was the person who had solved the food crisis in Chang and City when Chang and City was short of food. It could be said that Zhang Feng had shouldered the lives of more than half of the people in Chang and City at that time. Later, he had built an academy on the mountain and saved the lives of a large number of disaster victims. Moreover, he didn't ask for money and let these people work in exchange for food. Not only was the food not made of chaff, but it was also better than what people ate during the New Year. Most importantly, they were fed the same food every day. As a result, not only did the disaster victims not lose weight or starve to death in the past 3 months, most of them even gained weight. After that, Zhang Feng had built a market at the foot of Shao Mountain, built roads, and barbecued basketball. Which one of these things hadn't been done by Zhang Feng? What was this? This was the real benefit. What about you, Kong Ingda? With just a few words, they claimed that everything Zhang Feng had created was fake and that it was a ploy to harm everyone's lives. If Zhang Feng was really that kind of person, then why did Zhang Feng save them and give them food? Why is this happening? Do you have nothing to do? Moreover, you, Kong Ingda, did you do anything good when the people of Chang'an were suffering? You didn't even donate a little bit of food, and you didn't even give out a little bit of porridge at the entrance of the residence. The news spread like wildfire in Chang'an City. In less than 2 hours, the whole city knew about it. After all, this was something that concerned everyone's lives. How could they not be concerned? Therefore, at this time, there were two kinds of voices in Chang'an City. One was that he believed that Zhang Feng would not do such a thing, nor would he do such a thing. However, there was still a group of people who were unhappy with Zhang Feng and White Deer College. When they connected the dots, they instantly understood what was going on. Why did the emperor personally issue an edict for an academy? Why was White Deer College ranked higher than Imperial College? Moreover, even though White Deer Academy was an academy, what sort of things were taught there? It was all things that no one could understand. Most importantly, the academy was not recruiting. However, even though the White Deer Institute had already opened its doors and was currently recruiting, the White Deer Institute did the exact opposite and stopped recruiting. Most importantly, what kind of things were being taught on the mountain? Every day, a large number of White Deer College students could be seen strolling around Chang'an City. If they were not doing business, they would be carrying medicine boxes and looking for beggars to treat their injuries. Or they would go to restaurants and taverns. On the surface, they were there to practice cooking. But who knew what their real intentions were? Amidst the hubbub of discussion, Kong Ingda once again vanished without a trace and returned to his residence, seeming rather forthright as if he had finished his business and left. However, this angered Li Shimin. Whether the discussion was good or bad, it was not a good thing. After all, if no one stepped forward and this matter was allowed to fester, it would lead to a disaster. Originally, Li Shimin wanted to personally issue an edict to suppress this matter. He even wanted to directly arrest the culprit. However, Wei Zheng blocked Li Shimin. He even pushed Sun Simiao out. In his opinion, Sun Simiao was a divine doctor and had a good reputation among the people. They could not believe anyone else. But who was divine Dr. Sun? As long as divine Dr. Sun confirmed this matter, no matter how big of a mess Kong Ingda created, it would be suppressed. Li Shimin nodded and sent a secret edict to invite Sun Simiao down from the classroom on the mountain. At first, Sun Simiao thought that someone in the imperial palace was seriously ill. However, when he arrived at Chang'an City, he found out that such a thing had happened. In an instant, Sun Simiao was also furious. Several pharmacy apprentices who were sent to the mountain went to find several respected doctors in Chang'an and then brought Imperial Dr. Zhou out of the imperial palace. At this time, they were at the entrance of the East Market. Sun Simiao directly set up a table and sat on it. In less than 2 hours, the news that Sun Simiao went down the mountain and was at the entrance of the East Market spread all over Chang'an City. How could the people in Chang'an and not know why Sun Simiao went down the mountain? They hurried to the East Market and wanted to know whether this matter was true or not. However, when they came to the entrance of the East Market and saw Sun Simiao's face as dark as the bottom of a pot, they were shocked to find that Mr. Sun was angry. Could it be that phosphate fertilizer could really double the grain and was not poisonous? Chapter 1341. Sun Simiao wasn't in a hurry. Instead, he sat on the chair and slowly drank his tea. Teacher, you are... Come to my residence. At this moment, Imperial Physician Zhou hurried to Sun Simiao's side, sweating profusely. Sun Simiao coldly glanced at Imperial Physician Zhou, the group of Imperial physicians behind him, and the doctor who was rushing over. He said, "Old man didn't ask you for anything before, but he said that being a person is like practicing medicine." But today, when the old man was recuperating on the mountain, he heard those filthy words. Hearing this, Imperial Physician Zhou and the others turned pale and bowed. They didn't dare to move. The onlookers, as well as the soldiers patrolling the streets, looked at Sun Simiao with reverence. They didn't dare to speak. After all, Sun Simiao's reputation was too great. Today, this old man is not here for anything else. I don't want to know who is the one who thinks that phosphate fertilizer is poison and wants to plant poisonous food to harm people. Who is the one who spread such rumors? Old man only has one thing to say. I'm sure all of you are more aware of what White Deer Academy is doing than this old man. Regardless of whether it's the rescue of the refugees or the opening of the market, we haven't collected a single copper coin from you. What is this? Do you really think that Prince Zhang Zhangfeng is rich and overbearing? No, this is because Prince Zhang is kind-hearted. Otherwise, do you think he would spend so much effort? We are talking about the matter on the mountain. From the barren mountain until now, have you seen Zhangfeng collect a single copper coin from the students because of this matter? Where is your conscience? If it wasn't for Zhangfeng, think about it. Those pigs, chickens, ducks, and locusts that made you suffer, would you be so comfortable now? Sun Simiao was furious. That brat Zhangfeng didn't care about his own life and went to research that phosphate fertilizer. Although he hadn't seen any results for the time being, he believed that the brat wouldn't do anything that would harm the heavens and reason. Otherwise, why would he make such an unnecessary move? Why didn't he just do it during the drought? Wouldn't it have been better if he had done it during the locust plague? There was no need to attract so much trouble, right? Moreover, Sun Simiao had experimented with the refined phosphate fertilizer before. In his courtyard, he planted a large number of herbs. Most of them were precious varieties, and some could be planted in large quantities. He couldn't bear to part with the precious herbs, so he used them on those herbs that could be mass-produced. Originally, those medicinal herbs were all yellowish. However, in less than 3 days after the phosphate fertilizer was applied, he suddenly discovered that these yellowish medicinal herbs seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. They crazily increased in size and had a dark color. Looking at the momentum, this year's yellow ginger field, which was only the size of a dustpan, was simply more terrifying than the harvest of 1 mu of land in previous years. How could Sun Simiao not be shocked? Before he could ask Zhangfeng for some phosphate fertilizer to apply to his medicinal herbs in the courtyard, he received a secret order from Li Shimin. This really made the old man explode with anger. He plucked a handful of yellow ginger and didn't even care about his appearance. He wanted to find the rumor monger and have a good talk with him. However, when he came to Chang'an City, he found that things seemed to be more serious than he thought. After all, this thing was too important for all the people. It was simply a matter of everyone's safety. Although most of them believed it, they were led by those who didn't believe it. Although these people said that they believed it, who knew whether they believed it or not? Not to mention others. Even Sun Simiao didn't believe it when he didn't see the magical effect of the herbs he planted. At this time, after Sun Simiao vented his anger, he waved his hand and looked at the dozens of doctors who bowed in front of him. Some of you are disciples of the old man. Some of you have also received some guidance from the old man. Do you still know the character of the old man? Why did such a thing happen? What are you doing? Could it be that in your hearts, the old man is also the kind of person who deceives the world? When Imperial Dr. Zhou and others heard this, their faces changed instantly. They hurriedly said, "Master, what are you talking about?" When the rumors started to spread, we had already stood up. But we couldn't do anything. Sun Simiao looked at them coldly with his hands behind his back and said, "But you have no evidence. That is to say, even you don't believe that this thing is true?" Sun Simiao looked around and nodded. "I can't make a conclusion without seeing the thing itself. The old man didn't believe what Zhangfeng said before, but now the old man believes it. It turns out that all the compliments to the old man for so many years were perfunctory. Forget it. Today, since you want to know whether the phosphate fertilizer is poisonous, the old man will give you the answer." "Pa!" Sun Simiao angrily slammed the table. In an instant, the 2 children behind him quickly took out a lot of black things from the basket behind them and handed them to Sun Simiao. Sun Simiao raised the yellow ginger in his hand and said, "This thing, I believe you all know what it is, right?" While speaking, under everyone's puzzled eyes, Sun Simiao actually plucked a yellow ginger leaf and threw it into his mouth. In an instant, everyone was shocked. This is Chapter 1342. Everyone was shocked. Although this thing looked similar to a kind of plant, it was just a similarity. However, it was only similar. It was not the kind of thing they knew at all. That was yellow ginger. It was the most common kind of medicinal herb. Basically, every family would plant some of it. If one had a headache or fever, they could just boil a little bit of it and drink it. However, the leaves and stalks of yellow ginger that they knew were either light yellow or light green. How could it be as green as this thing? This was simply a dark green color. What was going on? Imperial Dr. Zhou seemed to have thought of something. And this emperor was a little spicy. If Sun Simiao kept eating it, there would be a big problem. Imperial Dr. Zhou hurriedly stepped forward and grabbed Sun Simiao. He said anxiously, "Teacher, don't eat anymore. Your body can't take it." Among the onlookers, as well as some of the doctors Sun Simiao had ordered before, they were all crying and kowtowing on the ground, begging Sun Simiao to stop eating. What a joke. Those doctors were fine. If these people didn't stop it quickly, if something really happened today, not to mention the emperor's anger, even if they had an illness, they would still want to see a doctor. They were the ones who forced the divine doctor to death. Do you think any doctor would dump them? Seeing this, Sun Simiao stopped. He pointed to the yellow ginger leaves in his hand and said, "This thing, old man, I believe you are all familiar with it, right?" "Yes, this thing is the most common yellow ginger. But you may ask, at this time it is impossible for yellow ginger to grow so strong, so high, and so green, right?" At this time, Sun Simiao didn't need to say anything. They understood in an instant. Was this all thanks to the phosphor fertilizer? Damn it. How was this possible? Imperial Dr. Zhou hurriedly asked, "Teacher, how long has the phosphate fertilizer been used for this yellow ginger? And those precious medicinal herbs in your courtyard, were they all used phosphate fertilizer? Is this the effect of phosphate fertilizer?" Sun Simiao nodded. He said proudly, "That's right. The old man did use phosphate fertilizer. Originally, the old man was like all of you. He didn't believe that this stuff could have such a miraculous effect. Last time, at the end of the worship ceremony, that kid gave the old man some. The old man was a little reluctant, so he took it back and sprinkled it on the yellow ginger. But who would have thought that, after just a few days of not paying attention, this thing gave this old man a big fright this morning. Originally, this old man wanted to pour in some of those precious medicinal herbs. In this way, not only would the production of all those precious medicinal herbs increase greatly, if in the case of that kind of illness, we wouldn't be in the predicament of not being able to find the medicinal herbs even though we have the prescription. However, old man was on the mountain. He heard someone say that this thing was poisonous. The old man now wants to ask, look at the old man eating this thing for such a long time. Is what the old man ate fake? Look at the old man. Do you see any signs of poisoning? Who is spreading this rumor? This old man will once again announce to the world that I don't care who spread this rumor, and I won't investigate. However, from now on, this old man will add another rule to this old man's rule. From now on, the Confucius family, the Shandong gentry, and the old man will never take a step into them. After that, Sun Simiao waved his sleeve and left angrily. This time, the whole East Market fell into a dead silence. Sun Simiao's status at this time could be said to be on an equal footing with the emperor. He also got the title of miracle-working doctor with his medical ethics and medical skills. In his life, he had never fought with anyone, let alone made enemies with others. Today's matter was the first time Sun Simiao had encountered such a thing. It was also the first time everyone saw Sun Simiao so angry. Was this still the friendly divine Dr. Sun? If divine Dr. Sun were to remember his appearance today, then what if he had a headache or fever in the future? What if he didn't treat him? At this time, everyone panicked in an instant. Imperial Dr. Zhou rolled his eyes and seemed to understand Dr. Sun's meaning. He sighed sadly and looked at the people who were quietly leaving, saying, "The old man is the supervisor of the Imperial Hospital and the disciple of my teacher. My teacher's words are the words of the Imperial Hospital. From now on, unless the Emperor and the Crown Prince give an order, the old man will never take a step into the Confucius family. And he will not take a step into any Shandong gentry." At this time, everyone was inexplicably shocked. Did they directly fall out with each other? And it was with Dr. Sun and the Shandong gentry? What did this mean? At this time, everyone thought of an important thing. That was, why was Sun Simiao angry? Why did he eat yellow ginger in public? Wasn't all this because of the phosphate fertilizer? That was to say, the phosphate fertilizer was really effective, right? At this time, everyone couldn't calm down. They were both worried and excited. In an attic not far from the entrance of the East Market, Li Shimin slowly waved his folding fan and looked at all this with a smile. After seeing the changes in the people's expressions, Xiao Gizi, Wei Zheng, and the others hurriedly bowed and said, "Congratulations, Your Majesty." Chapter 1343. Li Shimin didn't expect that either. Before, whenever he asked Sun Simiao for help, Sun Simiao would refuse. But this time, he thought Sun Simiao would still refuse. He didn't expect Sun Simiao to have such a big reaction after hearing this. Originally, he didn't plan to go out of the palace. But after hearing Sun Simiao's scary expression, Li Shimin hurried out of the palace. He was afraid that Sun Simiao would do something extreme and it would be difficult to clean up the mess. But when he saw the yellow ginger, Li Shimin was relieved. This matter, it was finally done. But his interest in the phosphate fertilizer was no less than the people downstairs. On the contrary, he was looking forward to it. From the potato leaf brought by Nyojinda to the yellow ginger, they were all products of phosphate fertilizer. Forget about the leaf, he didn't know what it was. But what about the yellow ginger? Who in the Tang dynasty didn't know about it? Just this thing, how could it grow to this extent? If this thing was used on food, what would it look like? As for Sun Simiao's words about not going to the Kong mansion and not going to the noble families in Shandong, Sun Simiao had been doing this before. He just didn't fall out with him. But this time, it could be seen that Sun Simiao was really angry. He might as well fall out with him directly. Who was Sun Simiao? No matter what he did in Shandong, would he really dare to fight with Sun Simiao? Although Sun Simiao seemed to be alone, if a doctor was forced into a corner, his appeal would be terrifying. Those who had been rescued by him before, as well as those who had long sought help from the godly doctor, would all be the first to stand up for him. From the court to the army to the people at dawn. Who would care about an aristocratic family that had little to do with them? Especially the people. Did they know what an aristocratic family was? Did your aristocratic family give them 1 tael of silver or 1 penny? Usually, these aristocratic families looked down on the people the most. Did you think that the aristocratic families would have a good time when this day came? That would be the real joke. Li Shimin stroked his beard and looked at the more lively Chang'an city, falling into distress again. Damn it, what should he do now? Li Shimin closed the folding fan in his hand, turned around and paced around the room. He asked, "Now that this matter has been resolved, what should we do next?" Cheng Yaojin was a little confused as he asked, "Second Master, this matter has already been resolved. What else is there to do? Shouldn't we be going back now?" Li Shimin glared at Cheng Yaojin. "What I mean is, what if this group of people goes up the mountain?" "It won't happen, Second Master," Yuchigong hurriedly said. "Think about it. Now that such a big thing has happened, the security of Pyrolite Mountain will definitely be tighter. Besides, that kid is now a hot steamed bun. Who would dare to cause trouble? What if you provoke that brat? You know that brat. So, Second Master, you'd better not worry. We still have important matters to discuss." When Li Shimin thought of the major event that Yuchi spoke of, his expression involuntarily changed. He sighed and said, "Forget it. Forget it. Let old Nyo go up the mountain. I don't want to see him during this period of time. Let him go up the mountain, and I'll be at ease with Feng Zi's safety." When they heard this, they breathed a sigh of relief. Li Shimin was about to go out with his hands behind his back, but after thinking for a while, he asked, "How long can Chotzi hold on? Why hasn't there been a report today?" "There is." Wei Zheng hurriedly took out a memorial from his sleeve and handed it to Li Shimin. As soon as they saw this memorial, everyone's expression couldn't help but become solemn. This was the major event that Yuchigong had mentioned earlier. 5 days ago, several Turkic spies had been discovered in Chotzi City, and they had almost handed over the defensive map of Chotzi City. Moreover, in the last few days, the allied army of the Turks in India had set up camp at the border between the 3 countries, less than 300 li from Chotzi City. There were also signs of a large number of soldiers in Tubo, Tuyuhun, and the Turkic territories. Many things revolved around the war in Chotzi City. When Li Shimin and the others saw this memorial, they could not help but feel nervous. The more Li Shimin read the memorial, the gloomier his expression became. In the end, he snorted coldly and crushed the memorial into a ball. Let's go back to the palace. On the other side, on the mountain, Zhang Feng still did not know what had happened at the foot of the mountain. At this moment, he was accompanying Jing Shu and Zhang Yuyao as they watched the craftsmen installing the glass and trimming the flowers and plants in the courtyard. Today, Zhang Feng had just gotten some free time. When he heard that Arjunan had finished making the glass, Zhang Feng was very excited. He immediately put down the experiment in his hand and ran back to witness it with his own eyes. Although most of the glass was frosted, such as some of the glass in the room, were still transparent. However, the manufacturing process at this time was quite backward. There were still some impurities in the fired glass and more bubbles. Originally, Zhang Feng wanted to make a few mirrors, but the mirrors that he made, they were really not as good as bronze mirrors. After thinking about it, Zhang Feng gave up. After all, without some auxiliary materials, some things could not be made in this era by human labor alone. After all, it was not made by humans. It was the restriction of technology and the research of physics. At this moment, Chang Chumo walked into Zhang Feng's courtyard, muttering. As soon as he saw Zhang Feng, he said, "Fengzi, did you ask Dr. Sun to go down the mountain?" Zhang Feng was stunned. When did I ask him to go down the mountain? Chang Chumo was even more confused. Are you sure you didn't? No. Then why did I just hear that Dr. Sun angrily went down the mountain with a handful of yellow ginger? Chapter 1344. It was rare for Zhang Feng to have a little free time. Originally, he planned to secretly take the two girls to the waterfall to try to catch some night fish after the glass was installed. But at this time he met Chang Chumo. Zhang Feng couldn't help but have an idea. But at this time, seeing Chang Chumo like this, Zhang Feng was also a little surprised. What did Mr. Sun go down the mountain to do? Although Chang Chumo knew some things at the foot of the mountain, he dared not to say some things. Besides, this matter had nothing to do with Sun Simiao. Who knew that he went down the mountain? I don't know, but I heard that he was very angry. Zhang Feng frowned slightly. After greeting the two girls, he said, "Let's go to his villa and have a look. No, old man is back." Before Zhang Feng went out, he met Sun Simiao, who came slowly with his hands behind his back. There was no expression on Sun Simiao's face at this time. It was the same as usual. Zhang Feng glanced at Sun Simiao suspiciously and asked, "Mr. Sun, I heard from Tai Nyo that you went down the mountain angrily? What happened?" Sun Simiao waved his hand. "Nothing. It's just that a group of naughty children sneaked into a house in Chang and damaged some medicinal materials. But it's not a big problem. By the way, give old man more phosphate fertilizer later." Seeing that Sun Simiao was unwilling to say, Zhang Feng didn't want to smell anything. He just nodded. Seeing that Zhang Feng was going out, Sun Simiao asked subconsciously, "You are going to—" "Oh, nothing. Isn't it autumn now? I want to go to the waterfall to get some fish. Last time, I heard that a craftsman caught dozens of pounds of big fish in the lake." Sun Simiao opened his mouth, but he didn't say anything in the end and left. This made Zhang Feng more confused. But Chang Chumo couldn't stay calm. He asked excitedly, "Feng, are you really going to get fish?" "Fish." The cafeteria on the mountain never lacked food. As long as you had enough meal tickets, even if you ate until you vomited, no one would care. However, within a month, the academy would only give each student a meal ticket once. No matter how rich you are, if you want to eat, please use your meal ticket. Meal tickets became a hard currency on the mountain. Compared to money, they were nothing. Slowly, the shops at the foot of the mountain also took advantage of this point. They collected meal tickets and then sold them. This kind of thing actually made a lot of money for those people. Unfortunately, after Zhang Feng found out about this, the people at the foot of the mountain followed the rules. Therefore, the fragrant fish in the cafeteria were only served to an extremely small number of students who had made outstanding contributions, or those who had achieved the best results in less than 7 days of examinations. Only then would the academy reward them with meal tickets ranging from 100 to 100. But one had to know that eating a fish or a table of delicacies only required 10 meal tickets worth 5 taels, plus a meal ticket worth the same amount of money. In the face of everyone's doubts, Mr. Bo sure, there was only one sentence. Meat was for the capable. Why would you eat meat if you didn't have the ability? Wouldn't you feel ashamed? This time, Chang Chumo and others were miserable. Every time they saw Zhang Feng, they would take advantage of him. They had no choice. Their 100 meal tickets and 100 meal tickets were always used up in less than 10 days. If they didn't take advantage of Zhang Feng, would they starve to death? Who asked Zhang Feng to never ask for money for his meals on the mountain? So at this time, when they heard that Zhang Feng was going to get fish, they were so excited. Besides, no one could compare to Zhang Feng when it came to cooking fish. After a while, Zhang Feng, Chang Chumo and others came to the big lake under the waterfall. They saw Li Changqian and others flopping in the lake. Zhang Feng was so angry that he picked up a stone and threw it at them. As soon as Lao Tzu left, you came to slack off? The few of them didn't know that Zhang Feng would actually come to this place, and even bring along his 2 beauties. They were so scared that they hurriedly put on their clothes and stood beside Zhang Feng with a smile, constantly winking. Zhang Feng pointed in the direction of the hatchery. Are you done? There's no more phosphor stone, and we've finished all our production today. How much? Didn't you say that each of us has 100 kilograms of phosphor fertilizer? We're done. As for Ma Zhou and the others, When Zhang Feng heard this, he looked again. Apart from these 5 idiots, he couldn't see a single one of them. In addition, Li Changqian was speaking in a mumbling manner. Zhang Feng guessed that there was definitely something going on. Tell me, where are they? Didn't I ask you to take care of them? There's no need to take care of them. These guys aren't humans. Those guys are like animals. It's only been half a day, and each of them has produced 150 kilograms of phosphor fertilizer. Didn't you say that after 6 hours they must rest for 4 hours? These guys thought that they were slow learners, so they went to study physics. So when Zhang Feng heard this, he heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, a plan came to his mind. Looks like you've completed your mission. Fine, let's have fun today. As for the laboratory, don't go there for the time being. Give it to Ma Zhou and the others. Have a good rest tomorrow, no matter what you do. As for the day after tomorrow, report to me first thing in the morning. When they heard this, they didn't have to go to that torture place anymore. Everyone stood neatly and gave Zhang Feng a military salute as if they had been injected with chicken blood. Yes. Chapter 1345. But at this moment, Li Changqian inadvertently saw the faint smile at the corner of Zhang Feng's mouth and couldn't help but be shocked. He hurriedly asked, Fengzi, did something big happen? Zhang Feng waved his hand. Yes, something big happened. Now, continue to go into the water and catch fish. Whoever catches the most fish and the biggest fish will have an extremely comfortable time the day after tomorrow. That's equivalent to saying that you guys will be supervised by him and won't have to work. Li Changqian couldn't help but be even more puzzled. Could Zhang Feng do such a thing? Did the sun rise from the west? Seeing this, Zhang Feng hurriedly patted his chest and said, I promise. If it's not like what I said, I, Zhang Feng, will write my name backwards. How about it? This time, Li Changqian and the others didn't have a trace of suspicion. They pondered for a while and called Chang Chumo to the side to ask about the specific situation. After they really didn't find anything unusual, they hurriedly rushed into the water, including Chang Chumo, who didn't know how to swim, also exploded into a large splash in the water. He really couldn't do anything about catching fish. He was so anxious that he angrily scolded everyone in the water. But on the other hand, Zhang Sun, Wei Shuyu, Li Changqian, Du Hook, and Fang's Love were in the water, going up and down and occasionally catching a few fish. Even Shiva and Gao Kan, who came later to inform Zhang Feng about the glass installation, also joined in the battle. After all, Shiva was a prince who grew up by the sea. When it came to catching fish, he was really good. In a short while, whether it was eels, loaches, or anything else, they caught a lot. Li Changqian was so angry that he directly went on strike. Zhang Feng smiled and looked at Li Changqian, who was sitting beside him sulking, and said, "Do you want to catch more than them?" "Yes." Li Changqian didn't even think and agreed. But looking at the guys in the water, he couldn't even catch a single one of them and instantly became depressed again. Zhang Feng laughed and said, "If you want, I'll tell you a few things. Go and get them for me. I guarantee that you'll catch more fish than anyone else." Li Changqian was a little suspicious. "Really? When did I lie to you?" Seeing this, Li Changqian pushed Zhang Yuyao aside and hooked Zhang Feng's neck and said, "Bro, you're my brother. Tell me, what do you want? As long as I can get it, no matter how much it costs, I will find someone to get it right now." Li Changqian was a person who cared about his face. In addition, this matter was to determine the leadership of the organization. He had to get his hands on it no matter what, although he didn't know what to do. Seeing this, Zhang Feng smiled and said, "It's free and very cheap. Go and find me a large test tube with a rubber stopper. Of course, it's best if you can find a few more. Also, go to the lime kiln and get me some slaked lime. Please." "That's it?" Zhang Feng patted the back of Li Changqian's head and said, "Then what else do you want?" "Okay, wait. I'll be right there." After Li Changqian left, Jing Shu and Zhang Yuyao couldn't help but ask, "What are you going to do?" They had seen these two things before. Now that they heard Zhang Feng's words, they were even more puzzled. Most importantly, these two things were simply too common. Zhang Feng smiled and said, "I'm going to make a big firecracker." Zhang Feng had never forgotten about Qiuzi. Once the garrison there was surrounded by two armies. Once those bastards knew about the situation, they would definitely go south in one go. When that happened, the entire West Gate would be defenseless. Zhang Feng didn't dare to forget about this matter. In addition, Arcanon had brought him some bad news. Even after dismantling all the ironware in the shipyard, they had only managed to produce a batch of crossbows and ballistae. As for the composite bow that Zhang Feng had mentioned, the progress was even slower. In addition, Zhang Feng had improved several important parts of the Mingguang armor, so the steel was even more insufficient. This was the method that made Zhang Feng decide to take a different path. That was explosives. This thing. It was too simple. However, if one didn't know the ratio, it would take another 100 years for someone to accidentally create something like this, let alone now. Although firecrackers had been invented during the Warring States period, when gunpowder was invented, no one had ever used them in war. Zhang Feng had hesitated for a long time before deciding to do something like this. After all, once explosives appeared, it meant that the era of weapons was about to enter a period of decline. The consequence of this was that the damage caused by a war would be even greater. This was something that Zhang Feng didn't want to see. He wasn't a good person, but he wasn't a bad person either. If there was iron, he wouldn't want to take this path. But now, it was no longer up to him to decide. Once Qiuzi City fell, the entire Longyu Road would become someone else's territory again. The golden trade route plan that he had painstakingly drawn up would go down the drain. This was something that Zhang Feng absolutely didn't want to see. What was even more frightening was that when that time came, Chang'an would no longer be a problem that the Wei River Alliance could solve. At this moment, Li Changqian was panting as he rushed over with two big sacks on his back. He had just thrown the sacks to Zhang Feng when he said, "Fengzi, what's the use of these things?" Zhang Feng smiled and said, "You'll know soon enough." Chapter 1346. At this moment, the commotion on the shore had attracted the attention of the people in the water. Chang Chumo and Gao Kenshiwa were fighting in a fit of pique, causing splashes in the water. As for Wei Shuyu and Du Go, they thought that they were not inferior and had left early. What a joke. Gao Kenshiwa was really beating him to death. Who could stand that? The key was that this batch was stubborn. He would listen to whatever Zhang Feng said and was always straightforward. As for Shiwa, what was he? He was someone who had lived by the sea since young and was naturally familiar with the water. At this moment, he and Fang Yi were fighting fiercely in the water. It seemed that Fang Yi was also fighting with Shiwa. In the end, Du Go, Wei Shuyu, and Zhang Sun left the battlefield. They stared blankly at Zhang Feng, who was fiddling with the thing in his hand. Actually, this device was very simple. It was to put slaked lime into a bottle and poke a small hole in the bottle cap. That was it. In the slaked lime, Zhang Feng added some broken glass and a handful of small stones. It was very simple to make. This made them even more dumbfounded. They knew about slaked lime, not to mention this test bottle. Every day they would break a few of them. But at this moment, seeing that Zhang Feng was being so cautious, Zhang Sun was about to ask when Li Chengqian hurriedly stopped the two of them and let them watch quietly. No matter what Zhang Feng was doing now, it was a kind of knowledge. With Zhang Feng's temper, would he not tell them? Now that Zhang Feng was not doing it quickly, it meant that Zhang Feng was teaching them. Seeing this, Zhang Sun's heart was burning. He squatted on the ground and started fiddling with it like Zhang Feng. But he was stared down by Zhang Feng. Don't look at how happy I am fiddling with it. With your wet body, go away. If it explodes, someone will die. Zhang Sun heard this and was confused. What? Explode? Someone will die? Just this little thing? Li Chengqian was also somewhat confused. However, due to Zhang Feng's current cautiousness, he hurriedly kicked Zhang Sun Chang's butt, and even unceremoniously kicked this cousin of his to the ground. He hurriedly retreated a great distance. Feng Zi, are you sure this thing will kill people? Zhang Feng took the bottle and shook it. He glanced at them and said, when there's no water, it's fine even if you use it as a pillow to sleep, but you have to stop drooling. Just this? Hearing this, Zhang Sun became bolder again. Zhang Feng was right. Before the lime came into contact with water, it was indeed fine. But in this small bottle, once it came into contact with water, it would expand. Zhang Feng ignored them and shouted into the lake. Come up, all of you. I'll let you guys see what it's like to catch fish. Gao Can and Shiva were the most obedient. After hearing Zhang Feng's words, they hurriedly went ashore. Only Cheng Chumo and Fang Yai flopped around in the water for a while before they came ashore with a big fish in their arms. At this time, the shore was already filled with big and small fish, flopping around on the shore. However, this was not enough to attract everyone's attention. Everyone's gaze fell on the two small bottles in Zhang Feng's hands and the 3 test tube bottles filled with lime on the ground. When everyone was ashore, Zhang Feng handed the test tube bottle in his hand to Gao Kansas. He pointed at the lake and said, throw it out. Throw it as far away as you can. It's best to throw these bottles into the water as soon as possible. No. Didn't you just say that this thing can't touch water? Yes, Feng Zi, you want to. Without waiting for Cheng Chumo and the others to finish their questions, Gao Can threw the experimental bottle in his hand and the 3 bottles on the ground into the water, almost into the center of the lake. The reason why Zhang Feng asked him to throw it was because he valued his strength. This guy, just as everyone was puzzled. The bottles in the water emitted wisps of white smoke on the surface of the water, and then sank to the bottom of the water with a series of bubbles. Then there was no then. Li Chengqian was dumbfounded. He looked at Zhang Feng, who signaled the 2 girls to quickly cover their ears in confusion and said, That's it? That's it? Zhang Feng nodded. However, he covered his ears with a smirk. Although everyone was puzzled, after seeing Zhang Feng's smirk, everyone's expression changed and they hurriedly covered their ears. This grandson is too insidious. We can't be fooled by him. Boom, 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 boom. With 5 explosions, accompanied by a burst of ear-piercing noise, everyone couldn't help but look at the surface of the water. At this moment, the surface of the water seemed to be boiling. In an instant, at the point of the explosion, a wave that was at least 10 feet high rose. Countless water splashed in all directions. The entire surface of the lake was like a pot of boiling water, rolling violently and emitting bursts of white smoke. However, on the boiling surface of the water, a large number of fish floated to the surface of the water bit by bit with their white bellies facing upwards. This, Chapter 1347. The commotion here instantly alerted a large group of patrolling guards on the mountain. At this time, the Academy's guards had been renamed as security guards by Zhang Feng. Unlike the patrolling soldiers, they were no longer holding swords or spears in their hands. Instead, they were holding a kind of wooden stick called a baseball bat that was not thick at the grip but slowly thickened along with the handle. This was the right granted to them by Zhang Feng. It was also a symbol of status. A group of people waving their sticks ran over to take a look. After seeing Zhang Feng, they immediately shielded Zhang Feng and the two madams behind them. Only then did they glare at Li Chengqian and the others angrily, until Zhang Feng said 3 times that he was fine. But in desperation, Zhang Feng could only let the security guard check him up and down. After making sure that he was fine, the security guard left resentfully. But when he left, he saw the warning eyes of Cheng Chumo and the others. Cheng Chumo was so angry that he wanted to go up and beat them up. But he did not want to leave now. After all, there were still important things to do. After the security guard left, Yu Shernan and the others also heard the commotion and came over. After all, the commotion that Zhang Feng had caused just now was not small. When the 5 of them arrived and saw the fish bobbing up and down on the surface of the lake, they asked in surprise, "Fengzi, what are you doing?" Seeing this, Zhang Feng hurriedly bowed and said, "I have nothing to do, so I'm preparing to experiment with a new toy. At the same time, I want to improve the food." When the few old men heard this, they glared and pointed at the fish on the surface of the lake. "Don't tell us that you made all these fish?" At this time, not to mention how many fish he made, the entire surface of the lake was densely packed with fish. How many fish were there? Not to mention all the people here. Even if all the students of the academy came to eat for a day, they probably would not be able to finish it. Was this to improve the food? Besides, how could the entire academy not hear you? Looking back, you said you were catching fish for fun? For fun? Is this fun? Ouyang Sun was trembling with anger and was about to curse when Zhang Feng hurriedly shouted, "What are you waiting for? Quickly go into the lake to catch the fish. Wait, I'll treat everyone in the academy to fish. What's more, it's an all-fish feast that you've never eaten before." Really? Are you serious? For Cheng Chumo and the others who were super gluttons, every new thing that Zhang Feng came up with was unparalleled in the world. Nowadays, fish was usually stewed in a pot or roasted over a fire. There was nothing else. Therefore, although there were so many fish that they could jump into your arms when you were washing your feet, there was no way to eat them. Moreover, they had more bones than meat. Who would eat them for no reason? But Zhang Feng was different. They had eaten it a few times in Zhang Feng's tavern. It was different every time. This was what surprised and shocked them the most. But this time, Zhang Feng actually said that he was going to treat everyone to an all-fish feast, not to mention Cheng Chumo and the others who were excited. Even Yu Shernan and the others were salivating at this time. But when they thought of the serious matter, they called Zhang Feng to the jujube tree. Seeing that there was no one around, they asked solemnly, "Fengzi, what's the matter with the fish? Why did it become like this after hearing a few sounds? Even if Mr. Sun drugged it, it wouldn't be so powerful. How did you do it?" Zhang Feng chuckled. He pretended to be mysterious and said, "Please wait for a while. I'll give you an answer soon." They didn't understand what Zhang Feng was going to do, but they were still prepared to wait. Zhang Feng picked up the set of things again, but this time he was going to show it to them. So Zhang Feng only chose a thumb-sized test tube with a cork. After filling the test tube with lime and some sand, he pointed to it and said, "Dear teachers, watch carefully." While speaking, Zhang Feng threw the test tube in his hand into the water again. After experiencing everything just now, the test tube exploded again like a firecracker. Bang! With a small wave on the water, Yu Shernan and the others' faces changed instantly. This time, the experiment only used a small bottle the size of a thumb, but the power it caused greatly shocked the few of them. They could also imagine what had just happened on the lake. But it was also because of this that they looked so dignified. If this thing could be used here, then what would happen if it was thrown into a crowd of people? Ouyang Sun looked at Zhang Feng coldly and said, "Zhang Feng, kid, tell old man, what is this thing you made? What's its name?" Zhang Feng was a little confused. "This is what fried fish. If you want a name, then you can call it water thunder." Water thunder? I think what you put in it is the lime from the mouth of the kiln. Can this thing make such a big noise? Zhang Feng knew that they would have such doubts. He didn't say anything. Instead, After Li Chengqian and the others fished out the fish, he called everyone over and said, "Actually, the principle of this thing is in the physics textbook I gave you before. The theoretical experiment of this thing is called atmospheric pressure and hydraulic pressure." Chapter 1348. This thing. Yu Shinan and the others were completely dumbfounded. That thing was indeed in the textbook written by Zhang Feng, but this textbook was divided into two parts. The first part of the textbook was only elementary physics knowledge, and most of it was mathematics knowledge. This was a course open to everyone. As for aerodynamics and the like, only Li Chengqian, Ma Zhou, and the others could learn it. Only those who had stayed in the academy for more than half a year and were talented enough were qualified to learn more advanced things. But as for what Li Chengqian and the others were learning now, it was not something that ordinary people could learn. As for the few of them, they really didn't know about it. At this age, who would be bored enough to study this brain-burning machine? But at this time, when they heard Zhang Feng say this again, Yu Shinan and the others really couldn't sit still. Without waiting for them to speak, Li Chengqian hurriedly asked, "Fengzi, this thing of yours, can it be made by the natural collision of water and lime?" "More or less." Zhang Feng nodded and said, "There is another layer of meaning. You have seen this lime before. The main thing is that it expands when it meets water, producing infinite tension. You all know about the tension, right?" Zhang Feng pointed at the limestone on the ground. He picked up a piece of limestone and threw it into the water. In an instant, a large piece of limestone emitted bursts of white smoke in the water. In front of everyone's eyes, it instantly grew larger. At this time, Zhang Feng said again, "Our glass bottle is only so big. This thing will expand infinitely when it meets water, and this bottle is a thing that restricts it. Once its pressure reaches a critical point, it will instantly produce a big explosion. Then it will explode like a pig's urine bubble. As for the thing inside, at this moment, it will use the principle of thermal expansion and contraction of water and air to explode instantly." As Zhang Feng said, he once again put some lime into a larger glass bottle and threw it into the lake. In a moment, that bottle once again burst out a burst of ear-piercing explosions. In an instant, everyone was shocked again. This was the first time they had seriously watched the creation of this thing, as well as the entire process of its explosion. At this moment, everyone couldn't help but gasp. Ouyang Sun couldn't help but ask, "Kid, did you prepare this for Long Yu Dao?" Ouyang Sun naturally knew about the Long Yu Dao. In addition, the iron had not been found during this period of time. At this time, Zhang Feng suddenly took this thing out. Zhang Feng really didn't know about this. He really had no patience for fishing. Most importantly, they were on the mountain. He had only thought of this in a flash of inspiration. He only wanted to improve the meals for Li Chengqian and the others. However, after hearing what Ouyang Sun had said, he immediately changed his mind. Zhang Feng suddenly slapped his head and said, "That's right. How could I have forgotten about that?" Ouyang Sun's expression froze when he heard this. "You didn't think of it?" Zhang Feng spread his hands. "I really didn't think of this problem. But thanks to you, if not for you, this Long Yu Dao matter would really be a headache. Come, come, come. Tainyo, go get me some fish and firewood. Today is a memorable day. Let's eat and drink while we talk about our new plan." Ouyang Sun's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He also knew about what happened at the foot of the mountain. Although Zhang Feng didn't know, they all knew clearly. Seeing this, Ouyang Sun and Yu Shinan looked at each other. Yu Shinan waved his hand and said, "Fengzi, come. Let's talk about something serious. Li Gan, go and find your father." Zhang Feng knew what Yu Shinan and the others meant, but he was also a little confused. Wasn't it just a homemade bomb? Why were they so cautious? Actually, once this thing was completed, he would be able to do it. That was to be honest. This thing could really become a sharp weapon for Long Yu Dao. Zhang Feng didn't hesitate. He asked Chang Chumo and the others to call Ma Zhou and the others over. After all, that experiment had been done for a long time, and Zhang Feng didn't know how it would turn out. But about this bomb and the principle, he still had to explain clearly to them so that they wouldn't talk about it one after another. Troublesome. While waiting for the others, Zhang Feng was also pickling fish and picking out the fish that he wanted to eat with the lotus leaf bar. He also found the people in the cafeteria and threw the fish to them, explaining how to make paper-wrapped fish. At this moment, Li Shimin rode a white horse and hurriedly followed Li Chengqian up the mountain. As soon as he saw Li Shimin, Zhang Feng asked the others to start roasting fish according to his instructions. Then he slowly entered Yu Shernan's villa. As soon as he entered, he found that no one was sitting here. Instead, everyone was looking at him with a serious expression. However, Niujinda, Yuqigong, and Chun Yaojin were extremely excited. Before Zhang Feng could speak, Li Chengqian hurriedly closed the door and ordered Shiwa and Gao Ken to guard the door. However, Zhang Feng refused. In the end, Li Shimin had to let Xiao Gizi lead a large number of guards to surround the entire villa. At this moment, Li Shimin asked seriously, "Fengzi, I heard that you just made something amazing on the mountain." Chapter 1349. Li Shimin was originally in the imperial court with Wei Zhang and the others, having a headache over this matter. The matter of Long Yu was imminent. But at this time, the only way was to hope that Zhang Feng could produce the strong crossbow and the ballista in a short time. As for the composite bow, Li Shimin did not take it to heart. After all, the news he received was that this thing was extremely consumable, so Li Shimin did not use it as the main thing to fight against Long Yu this time. But the news he received this morning was that at least 300,000 Indian and Turkic soldiers had been discovered. Even if they had the ballista, it would not be of any help. At most, they would have a slight chance of winning. But just now, Li Shimin and the others could not help but be excited after Li Chengqian hurried back to the palace and told them about the situation of the fried fish. Immediately, they did not care about anything else and hurriedly went up the mountain. But when he saw that Zhang Feng was actually roasting fish under the waterfall, how could he sit still? Almost everyone in the room had the same thought as Li Shimin. Although Yu Shernan and the others did not advocate using this method, they also knew that once the armies formed an encirclement and arrived at Chotzi, it meant that the Tang dynasty would be involved in the flames of war again. Originally, the Tang dynasty was not rich at this time. So at this time, when they saw Zhang Feng's thing and Zhang Feng's actions just now, they had the urge to beat Ouyang Sun to death. At this time, when they saw Li Shimin's situation, who dared to sit down? Zhang Feng saw that they were so cautious, and Li Shimin asked this question. Zhang Feng nodded, then shook his head and said, "Sit down. Why are you standing?" "Actually, I didn't think of this thing just now. I was just thinking of using it to fry fish. But Mr. Shimpan's words just now really reminded me. Yes, this thing can be used in the front line, but it's useless to have it now." Li Chengqian heard this and asked in surprise, "Why is that? Wasn't it powerful enough just now?" Zhang Feng nodded. "The power is indeed sufficient, but it has a prerequisite, and that is to come into contact with water. Moreover, we can't control the process of him coming into contact with the water and the detonation process." When Yu Qigong heard that, he glared at him and said, "So after all that talk, this thing of yours is useless apart from being able to fry fish." This time, they could not help but feel disappointed. He had come all the way here, and this was it? How could they accept this? Li Shimin also lit a cigarette and took a deep puff. He sat beside Zhang Feng and sighed, "AI, Feng Zi, you don't know this, but this morning Lord Zhangsun sent someone to ask me what you have done with those things. You don't know this, but now, the Indian and Turkic armies of 300,000 have gathered at the border less than 300 miles away from Chotzi city. According to the scouts, Tuli Khan has personally led an army of 150,000 to Shelley's tribe 3 days ago. In other words, once they have figured out the situation in Chotzi city will be in danger." This was not alarmist talk. After Zhang Feng heard this, he suddenly looked at everyone and asked suspiciously, "Could it be that all of you already knew about this?" No one said anything. Zhang Feng felt more and more that they should have known about this matter long ago. Zhang Feng was not happy. "I say, Lao Li, this is your fault. Tell me, are we brothers? How are we brothers? Look at what you've done. What kind of thing is this? Why did all of you know about this? But I didn't get any news. You guys, on the other hand, I worked myself to death on the mountain, but I didn't know anything about what was going on outside." Li Shimin was shocked. He quickly asked in surprise, "You didn't know?" Zhang Feng spread his hands innocently. "How could I know?" Li Shimin sighed and said, "I thought they had told you." "All right, let's not talk about it anymore. Li Qian, you too. How could you forget such an important matter? Remember to tell Feng Zi more about what happened at the foot of the mountain." Li Changqian nodded, feeling wronged. At this time, Li Shimin asked again, "Feng Zi, let's not dwell on this matter. Tell me, can this thing be used in Chotzi City?" Zhang Feng did not dwell on this matter. He nodded and said, "Yes." Before Li Shimin could be happy, Zhang Feng continued, "But there is a prerequisite, and that is to modify this thing. Otherwise, it will be a disgrace if it goes." "Then tell us, kid. What are you waiting for? The brothers at the front can't hold on any longer." Yu Qigong, Niu Jinda, and Cheng Yaojin were so anxious that they wanted to strangle Zhang Feng. Li Shimin was also a little anxious. But at this time, the old scholar's voice came from outside the door. "Wait." Chapter 1350. Everyone in the room was shocked to hear this. Everyone looked at Li Shimin. Old Xiu must have come to stop Zhang Feng from making this thing. This was exactly what Yu Shernan and the others wanted. However, Old Xiu was too stubborn. If he offended the emperor at this time, wouldn't that be? Li Shimin sighed helplessly. "Let him in." Old Xiu looked around the room as soon as he entered. Then he said to Zhang Feng, "Fengzi, can you not use that thing you made in any war?" Zhang Feng didn't think too much about it. After all, this matter had already happened. Moreover, he already knew about Chotzi City. It was his decision. Regardless of whether Chotzi City would win the war or not, he must eliminate the nobles in the city. Chotzi City would become a trading hub and an important location for Zhang Feng's future plans. He couldn't afford to lose it. Zhang Feng sighed. "Old Xiu, I really don't want to start a war. No one knows the power and terror of this thing better than I do. The terrifying power it can cause is definitely not something that swords, spears, or arrows can compare to. If you're injured by it, you'll either die or lose an arm or a leg. However, you should also know the importance of Chotzi City to the Tang dynasty. If Chotzi City fails, the western gate of the Tang dynasty will no longer be safe. You should know that all the military forces in Chotzi City are the sum of all the military forces in the western part of the Tang dynasty. If we fail, the Turks will take advantage of the situation and invade the south in large numbers. You should know that this year, the Tang dynasty is not the only one affected by the disaster. The Turks and Tubo, India, are suffering from a more serious plague of locusts and food shortages. But only our Tang dynasty reacted the fastest. How could this not attract their attention? Li Shimin also sighed slightly. Fengzi is right. This morning, Lord Zhongsun brought His Majesty's message. Basically, this time, the Tang dynasty didn't take the initiative to start a war, but counterattacked. Once the Tang dynasty fails to win this war, Mr. Zihuai, just think about it. Peace in the world is nothing but empty talk. Yu Shernan and the others were also constantly persuading Old Xiu to give up his original obsession. He really didn't want to see a war, especially at such a time. If the soldiers and horses moved, they would be burning money and food. But it was the same at this time. The Tang dynasty could not afford it. Coupled with the current situation in the Tang dynasty, once Zhang Feng appeared here, it would inevitably cause more danger, which was the last thing the old scholar wanted to see. But now, His Majesty had already said so. If he said anything else, he would be tactless. The old scholar looked at Zhang Feng and then looked at Li Shimin. In the end, he could only sigh helplessly. "I've heard about that thing. It's too lethal. If word gets out that it was Fengzi who did it, have you thought about how the world and the person behind it would impeach Fengzi? How will the world view White Deer College? Brother Zihuai, why don't you listen to what Fengzi has to say first?" Yu Shernan saw Li Shimin's face gradually turn gloomy and hurriedly pulled the old scholar to the side to sit down. Zhang Feng also saw Li Shimin's expression and was somewhat suspicious. "Lao Li, this is His Majesty's matter. Why do I feel that you are more anxious than His Majesty?" Li Shimin was shocked. He hurriedly said, "How can I not be anxious? His Majesty already knows that you're tinkering with this weapon. He originally wanted to come and see you, but for some reason, he couldn't come. Moreover, basically everyone in the imperial court knows about this thing. If Chotzi is defeated, then think about it. You're a viscount and you'll be fine, but we'll all die. Do you think we should be anxious? Yushernan and the others heard this and nodded repeatedly. They completely ignored the old scholar's expression. Zhang Feng was also confused by these people's words. He hurriedly comforted them. Don't be anxious. It's just a small matter. Can't I take care of it? Moreover, this thing is actually everywhere in our lives. As long as we have enough saltpeter and gunpowder and enough manpower, I can get you a large batch in 3 days. Moreover, the power of this thing is definitely not inferior to the thing I threw at the waterfall just now. In fact, it's dozens of times more powerful than that thing. Yushernan and the others had seen the power of the homemade bomb that blew up Chotzi City. Although Li Shimin and the others had not seen it with their own eyes, they still knew a little about it from Li Chengxian's description. Now that they heard Zhang Feng say that the power of this thing was dozens of times more powerful than that homemade bomb, their expressions couldn't help but change abruptly. They all stood up and stared at him with burning eyes. Almost in unison, they asked, "Is what you said true? This thing can really do that?" Zhang Feng was more speechless, but he still nodded. "I guarantee it. The power and lethality of this thing is definitely something you've never seen before. As long as we have this thing as a trump card in Chotzi City, I believe that even if 1,000,000 soldiers come, they won't be able to do anything to us." Chapter 1351. Li Shimin's heart was burning with excitement. Yushernan and the others were also stunned by Zhang Feng's words. They had seen the power of that thing just now. How could it be used to stop an army of 1,000,000 soldiers? Was that a joke? However, what Zhang Feng said next made everyone's hair stand on end. Basically, the first part was about the power of gunpowder, and the second part was mainly about the effects and dangers of explosives. Li Shimin and the others felt as if they were listening to a book from heaven. They were excited, and confused at the same time. After a full hour, Zhang Feng finally explained the matter of the gunpowder clearly. Li Shimin said in astonishment, "So you've been talking for an hour. This thing you're talking about is actually a large firecracker?" "Yes." Hearing that, Li Shimin was dumbfounded. He felt that he had been fooled by Zhang Feng. They all knew about the firecrackers, but they had never seen such powerful firecrackers before. But why did it become such a terrifying thing in Zhang Feng's eyes? It didn't make sense at all. Sigh. Li Shimin closed his eyes in pain. He sighed and said, "After all this time, this thing you mentioned is a firecracker." Zhang Feng nodded. "That's right. Isn't this a big firecracker? But do you really know anything about firecrackers?" Yu Qigong was unhappy when he heard that. His family owned a firecracker factory, so he knew a little about firecrackers. Seeing that this thing was actually a firecracker, he said, "Fengzi, after all this time, you're telling me that this is a firecracker? To be honest, my family owns a firecracker factory, but I don't think it's as amazing as you make it out to be. Are you setting off firecrackers for the two armies when they're facing each other? Is this a joke?" Zhang Feng chuckled and said, "I'm not joking. Old Yu, your family actually runs a firecracker factory. I'm just a newbie now. Go and find a firecracker. I'll give it a try now. Look at these firecrackers. What will the firecrackers you usually talk about turn into in my hands?" Yu Qigong was really excited. He hurriedly went out to look for firecrackers. After all, when Zhang Feng opened the sect last time, he had saved a lot of firecrackers. Looking for firecrackers at this time was just like looking for something. Not long after, Yu Qigong really did find a large basket of firecrackers. Seeing this, Zhang Feng could only bring them to the edge of the waterfall again. He asked someone to dig a big pit beside the waterfall, and Zhang Feng carefully connected the fuses of all the firecrackers together. Seeing that the pit was dug deep enough, Zhang Feng asked someone to throw the firecracker frames in. Then he asked someone to fill the pit with stones and wood. Then he took Li Shimin and the others to hide far away. He waved at Cheng Chumo, who was full of suspicion. Chang Chumo calmly lit the torch in his hand with a match and then threw it into the basket of firecrackers. Weren't these things just firecrackers? Who hadn't played with them when they were young? Was there a need to be so nervous? But before Chang Chumo walked far, he heard a sound that made his scalp tingle. It exploded behind him. Boom! Out of instinct, coupled with his unstable footing, Chang Chumo staggered and fell into the lake next to him. But at this moment, in the smoke and dust that filled the sky, pieces of gravel flew in all directions like a fairy scattering flowers. This time, everyone was dumbstruck. Even if they were still 100 feet away, they could still occasionally be hit by small stones. How far was this? This was 100 feet. Was this still the firecracker? Was this still the thing that looked ordinary in daily life? The power of this thing was really not a joke, was it? This time, everyone was aghast. They were stunned by this ordinary firecracker. I say, Fengzi, are you sure this firecracker is really so powerful? Li Shimin excitedly put his arms around Zhang Feng's neck and asked. In an instant, Zhang Feng's face suddenly turned pale. Li Shimin was so scared that he hurriedly let go of Zhang Feng. After a while, Zhang Feng came to himself. He looked at Li Shimin speechlessly and rolled his eyes, saying, Why don't you say it properly? I just asked you a question. Why are you ready to murder me? Li Shimin smiled. Well, I'm just excited. By the way, tell me, can this firecracker really be used in Chotzi City? Zhang Feng rolled his eyes. If you want to be funny, you can try to use the firecracker. But your idea is good. You can use the firecracker to confuse the enemy and then use the bomb. The effect will be better. Li Shimin and others were even more confused. Tell me. Don't dilly-dally. Just tell me, is this firecracker okay? And, if it's not okay, what should we use to replace it? As long as you can tell me, I, Lao Li, will get it for you today. Zhang Feng sighed and said, In fact, the things used are what the firecrackers need. I don't understand. These are all things handed down by our ancestors. How can you forget all of them? Isn't this thing 1 nitrate, 2 yellow, and 3 gunpowder? Chapter 1352. Gunpowder. It was invented by alchemists as early as the time of Qin Shi Huang. However, although these things were invented, they had always been in the hands of alchemists. Therefore, it was normal for them not to know some things. However, they could make firecrackers, but they couldn't make this thing? Thinking of this, Zhang Feng couldn't help but look at the burned firecrackers in surprise and ask, Old you said that your family is in the firecrackers business. Are you sure you don't know the formula of this thing? How would Yu Qigong know this thing? He pointed at Sun Simiao and said, You might as well ask Dr. Sunday. Dr. Sun knows something about this thing. Let me tell you who knows what you are talking about. I only know that there is bamboo and some gunpowder in my firecrackers. As for other things, yes, there is also some yellow mud. That's it. When Zhang Feng heard this, he couldn't help but be amused. He looked at Sun Simiao and said, Old Sun, do you really know this? In history, it was indeed recorded that Sun Simiao knew some alchemy and later refined the elixir of immortality for Li Shimin with Yuan Tiangang. However, this was all history. As for whether it was true or not, Zhang Feng really didn't dare to ask. After all, this matter had to be done slowly. But today, he actually encountered it. Zhang Feng couldn't help but want to ask. Although this was other people's privacy, there were so many people at this time. Moreover, it was old Yu who said it first, so it had nothing to do with Zhang Feng. Sun Simiao stroked his beard and sighed. That firecracker. Do you know why it was called firecracker in the beginning? Wei Zhang said in surprise. This old man only knows that it was because the bamboo was burned and exploded in the fire, which led to the birth of firecrackers. This is also the predecessor of firecrackers. It said that during the Han Dynasty, there was an alchemist. Because he was poor, he accidentally saw the explosion of bamboo. It was similar to the things commonly used in alchemy, so he poured black gunpowder into the bamboo. It's exactly the same as what Fengzi just did, except that the former used fire, while the one Fengzi used just now was water. Sun Simiao nodded. That's right. This is something that happened in Cao Cao's hands. According to legend, Cao Cao didn't believe in these things, So he drove all the alchemists in the Wei Kingdom into a mess. Because they had lost their livelihood, they created this thing. But who would have thought that this thing would successfully attract Cao Cao's attention and bring about a fatal disaster? After Sun Simiao finished speaking, he looked at Zhang Feng and said, "Old man, although I don't know where you learned this thing, it must have been passed down to you by your master, right? Since your master can use such miraculous medical skills, then this alchemy skill is naturally not a problem. Perhaps he can really refine immortality pills." Zhang Feng hurriedly stopped Sun Simiao. "Elder son, what are you talking about?" She had no choice but to interrupt him. If she allowed him to continue speaking like this, she would really be dead. It was fine to say these words here, but if it reached the ears of someone with ulterior motives, it would be fatal. His master, that was all fabricated. Not to mention now, even in the 21st century, no one could achieve immortality. Want to create an immortality pill? Thinking too much. But the King monarchs of this era, he didn't know if their heads were cramped or what, but they were so obsessed with such ridiculous things. Qin Shi Huang believed in this, but in the end, he was played to death by his own mercury. Emperor Wu of Han believed. In the end, he poisoned himself. This kind of thing was common throughout history. Even though they knew that this thing was actually nonsense, there were still countless people and monarchs who advanced dauntlessly for this thing. What was this? This was the real horror. At this moment, Zhang Feng only wanted to end this topic as soon as possible. He didn't know if the appearance of this bomb would make those monarchs realize that this thing was actually a deadly thing. But at the very least, the appearance of this thing would temporarily solve Chotzi's urgent problem. At this moment, Zhang Feng looked around and saw that everyone's eyes were burning with passion. He said, "Don't think too much. My master did mention this thing before, but he was right. In this era, from ancient times to even thousands of years later, no one could create this immortality pill because this thing originally didn't exist. It only existed in the imagination of some people. Many people thought that it could defy the heavens, but looking at history, who could really create the fruit of immortality? Immortality and alchemy were created by Junior Sister, but this gunpowder is also a very good thing. At the very least, I can maximize its effectiveness." When Li Shimin heard this, a hint of disappointment flashed in his eyes. He thought that Zhang Feng really had a way to create the immortality pill, but it wasn't important now. This matter could be discussed in the future. The main problem now was whether they could solve Chotzi's problem in a short period of time before talking about other things. At this thought, Li Shimin stared into Zhang Feng's eyes and asked, "Fengzi, the matter of Chotzi City is very important. Tell me, how long do you think it will take to create a bomb that can solve Chotzi's problem? As long as you give me a time, I will definitely get the rest of the things for you in 3 days. If you want money, I will give you money. If you want something, I will give you something. Even if you want to kill someone, I will kill them for you." Chapter 1353. Ahem, Second Master, don't be impatient. Let's listen to Fengzi's plan first. After all, it's very important. At this moment, Wei Zheng hurriedly said. Yu Shernan and the others also hurriedly tried to dissuade them. Even the old scholar wanted to interrupt their conversation several times, but he gave up when he saw Zhang Feng diverting the topic. But at this moment, when the fragrance of the fish wafted over, Zhang Feng instantly found an excuse. He rubbed his hands and said, "Are you all hungry? Let's go and eat fish. The fish in autumn is more delicious than any other time of the year. Let's talk while we eat." While speaking, Zhang Feng hurriedly opened the door without waiting for anyone to object. He shouted for people to move tables and stools, and asked people to bring in a large amount of wine. What could they say? The person in charge was unreliable. Li Shimin could only shake his head helplessly and follow Zhang Feng out of the villa. He also knew that he couldn't be too hasty. As soon as they stepped out of the door, they smelled the tempting fragrance in the air and couldn't help but sniff. Not far away by the waterfall, Chang Chumo, Li Changqian, and the others had been busy for a long time. Most importantly, they were also craving fish. However, this thing was not ready, and the emperor and the others hadn't come out yet, so they didn't dare to eat it. They could only wait until the emperor and the others sat down. Then they could get some and go to the side to eat. By the time everyone arrived at the lakeside, Li Chengqian and the others had already placed all kinds of grilled fish on the table for Li Shimin and the others. Zhang Feng had also personally rolled up his sleeves and taught Zhang Yuyao how to make braised eel under her insistence. Li Shimin and the others each had a fish wrapped in white paper in front of them. It was on a red-hot tile, giving off a tempting fragrance. Looking at Zhang Feng's busy figure, the old scholar called out, "This brat, he didn't even tell me how to eat this. He's really reckless." Hearing this, Li Shimin shook his head slightly. "I'm afraid this kid is giving us a difficult problem." The old scholar's eyes flashed and he smiled without saying anything. Cheng Yaojin rubbed his hands anxiously and asked, "Second master? What do you mean? Isn't this just a piece of paper? Can't you just tear it open?" Li Shimin shook his head and said, "If you compare this fish and this table to the current battle, then take a look." Cheng Yaojin was dumbfounded. The fish was still the same fish. How could he see the twists and turns in this? He looked at Yu Qigong and Niu Jinda. At this moment, the two of them were just as confused as he was. Only then did Cheng Yaojin feel at ease and tear open the white paper wrapped around the fish. In an instant, the tempting fragrance that was so rich that it could not be dispersed made everyone unable to help but sniff again. Li Shimin pointed at the fish and the layer of paper and said, "This fish is equivalent to the current Tang dynasty, and this paper is the garrison of Chiotzi City. Everyone is drooling when they see this fish, but because of this layer of paper, basically no one dares to tear it open for the time being. But in less than half a month, if there is really someone like you, Old Chen, then guess what will happen to the Tang dynasty?" In an instant, not only Yu Shernan and the others were stunned. Even Cheng Chumo and the others who were secretly putting the fish into Zhang Feng's villa were stunned. They looked at the fish in their hands, then at Zhang Feng, and then at Li Shimin, not knowing what to do. This fish, how could they eat it? Li Shimin was right. At this time, in the eyes of others, the Tang dynasty was like this paper-wrapped fish. Although they had not eaten it, the tempting taste was fatal. Not to mention the others, including those Turks who were covetously eyeing the Tang dynasty at this time. At this time, let alone being full, as long as they were not hungry, it would be good enough. In addition, the food consumed by the garrison was incalculable. For them, staying here for one more day was a burden for one more day. How could they dare to stay here any longer? The dishes are here. At this time, Zhang Feng, Old He's wife, and the other cooks in the kitchen served plates of delicious dishes, such as fish bubbles, eels, loaches, and so on. In an instant, no one had any thoughts of letting their imagination run wild. This thing was simply trying to kill people. Zhang Feng rubbed his hands and forced the two women to sit down. But as soon as the two women sat down, they hurriedly apologized and ran away with blushing faces. Zhang Feng could only sigh and ignore the two of them. He waved his chopsticks and said, "Come, come, come, let's try this thing. It seems that we haven't sat so neatly together for a meal in a long time, right? Come on, let's eat. Everything can wait until after the meal. How about it?" Seeing this, Li Shimin was also tempted. He waved his hand with a smile and said, "Let's eat. We haven't had a good meal these days. It's rare that Fengzi is in such a good mood today. Let's not spoil his good mood. But before eating, Fengzi, I have a question to ask you first." Zhang Feng picked up a fish bubble, put it in his mouth, and chewed it with a crunching sound. He asked, "What's the matter?" "It's about the dishes on this table." "Do you mean that the dishes on this table are like the Tang dynasty now?" Zhang Feng was a little confused. He looked at Li Shimin suspiciously, and finally touched his forehead and said, "Lao Li, you don't have a fever. Why are you talking nonsense now?" Chapter 1354. Li Shimin was speechless. "We are talking about serious business. Why do you only care about eating?" Li Shimin suddenly felt that he had already deviated from his expectations by coming here to ask about this matter. At the beginning, he was looking for something to solve the Chiotzi crisis. Now, why did everything in Zhang Feng's place have something to do with eating? In this world, only you, Zhang Feng, can be so heartless, right? Li Shimin said with a straight face, "This is not child's play. compared with Li Shimin, the old Shotsai and Yu Shernan felt more at ease. They even hoped that this matter would be as ridiculous as possible. It would be best if Zhang Feng said that this thing was a joke in the end. The more Zhang Feng acted like this, the more the emperor would feel the preciousness of this thing, as well as how terrifying it was. Naturally, the emperor would retreat. After all, this emperor was not simple. He was of Hu blood and was born to be warlike. However, in their knowledge, peace was the most important thing. These were two opposite ideas. Most importantly, the old Shotsai could not bear to see Zhang Feng make such a cruel thing. At least, it was not made by Zhang Feng. It would make the future people think that the source of all this was Zhang Feng. The old Shotsai thought of this and said, "Second master, why don't we talk about it after the meal? Perhaps Fengzi is thinking about something important now, and this meal is Fengzi's goodwill. After all, we have never eaten together before." The old Shotsai's voice fell. Yu Shernan and the others nodded repeatedly. "Second master, brother Zihuai is right. Let's eat first. We can talk about it after the meal." Since Fengzi said it, and second brother also said that it has something to do with eating, why don't we comprehend Fengzi's thoughts while eating? This is also very wonderful. Li Shimin thought for a while and looked at Zhang Feng, who was wolfing down the food. He was also speechless. He shook his head and said, "Then let's eat." About 2 hours later, they just ate, drank, and had fun, and did not mention anything about this thing. After the cups and plates were in a mess, Zhang Feng broke a bamboo tip and said while picking his teeth, "Let's go. Let's go to my villa. Let's sit there, drink tea, and chat. Won't it be fun?" They had no choice but to follow Zhang Feng into the villa, including Ma Zhou and the others. Jing Shu and Meng Meng went out early. No one knew what they were going to do. It was as if they already knew that they would come here after dinner. When everyone saw that the two women were no longer around, they let go and lit up a cigarette each. In an instant, the entire spacious and bright living room suddenly became like a dream. Smoke lingered. At this time, Li Shimin asked, "Fengzi, can we talk about this now?" "Talk about what?" Zhang Feng burped and asked. But when he saw Li Shimin's expression, he slapped his head and said, "Hey, look at my memory. This meal is actually just a simple meal. There's no other meaning. Don't think too much about it. I just heard old Li say that there might be some other purpose behind this meal. To be honest, there isn't. Although we all know each other, we have never eaten together with so many people before. To put it bluntly, we have never eaten together like this before. Today is a rare occasion. So let's have a meal together to improve our friendship. As for what old Li said just now, if you think so, you can say so too. After all, our Tang dynasty is now a delicious steamed bun in the eyes of others. Everyone wants to take a bite of it. But this is only for now. In the future, when our phosphate fertilizer and this season's wheat and corn harvest are harvested, it will not be a delicious steamed bun. At that time, I believe that even thousands of miles away, Dashi country, which is as powerful as our Tang dynasty and is even richer than our Tang dynasty, will not be able to sit still. Hearing that, everyone's expression changed at the same time. Zhang Feng continued, "I know that Confucius, those sages, and the people in the world at this time, no one wants to go to war. Why? People will die if they go to war. And the most important thing is that it will consume too much of our national strength. Our Tang dynasty is now in a state of chaos. I have told Lao Li before that it is really not suitable for us to go to war now. After all, we have no food. But others don't think so. In their eyes, our Tang dynasty is a delicious steamed bun. So what should we do? Let's beat them back first. As long as we can get through next year's harvest, when all the people have a full warehouse of food, our every military grain collection will not be as bad as it is now. Think about it. At that time, we will beat whoever we don't like in our Tang dynasty. We will beat them until they are convinced and no longer dare to covet the riches of our Tang dynasty. How good is that? Why do we have to fight for this momentary pleasure?" Li Shimin's brows furrowed like fried dough twists. "You can say that, but you can't do anything about it. You saw it yourself. We're not hitting others. We're protecting ourselves now. Do you mean that the bomb you mentioned is fake?" Chapter 1355. At this time, Li Shimon's heart was also somewhat in a mess. He did not know which part of what Zhang Feng said was true and which was false. He was not sure what the purpose of the bomb was. But just now, after he fiddled with the firecrackers, he was able to make such a big hole. He really did not expect that the most inconspicuous thing could be so powerful. He did not expect it either. He had been looking forward to it for a long time, but this kid still did not seem to want to make it. What was he hesitating for? Fengzi, is there something you are worried about? Or rather, what are you hesitating for? You can tell me. If I can help you solve it, I will not hesitate. Zhang Feng was indeed hesitating. After all, once this thing was made, what did it mean? It meant that the era of cold weapons was coming to an end. As long as one was an alchemist, one would be able to figure out the principle of this bomb after some time. He did not doubt the wisdom of the ancients. After all, how could the people who invented the 4 great inventions be stupid? Besides, this thing had been made for hundreds of years. He was just changing the style. Anyone could study it thoroughly. And this time, it was used in Chotzi because of an emergency. He had no choice. If there was really a way, Zhang Feng really wouldn't have brought this thing out. After all, once this thing was brought out, even more people would die in the war. This was not what he wanted to see. As for the objection of the old scholar and the others, it was also because of this reason. Zhang Feng did not answer Li Shimon's question. Instead, he looked at Ma Zhou and the others and asked, Ma Zhou, you have followed me for so long. I want to ask you, what do you think is the most important thing in a war? What was the most important thing? This time, Ma Zhou and the others fell silent. They had also studied Zhang Feng's military books, written knowledge of the confrontation between 2 armies, and sand table drills. During this period, they had been studying mathematics, poetry, and songs from early in the morning. They analyzed their meaning and studied the book of songs and so on. At night, Zhang Feng would teach them some more profound things, such as physics and military science. At this time, after hearing Zhang Feng's question, Ma Zhou thought for a moment and bowed. Teacher, I think that in a war, the most important thing is the people. This answer made even Yu Qigong, Chang Yaojin, and Niu Jinda frown slightly. But Li Shimon waved his hand and said, Continue. A military confrontation or a war between 2 sides, excluding all other factors, combined with what teacher is saying now, I think that the people are the most important thing. Take this bomb as an example. If it's used in the right hands to protect the country, then it's righteous. If it's used in an invasion, then it's unrighteous. These are all things that determine a person, a general, and an emperor's definition of this war. That is why I think that the people are the most important thing. Before he finished, Niu Jinda and the other 2 asked, Then, if we look at the current situation of the Tang dynasty and the surrounding situation, what do you think in this war, if our people not only defeated the Turks but also directly attacked their grassland, how do you think this is defined? This Ma Zhou's expression froze. He did not know what to say. Zhang Feng also looked at Hao Chujun and the others thoughtfully. You guys also say something. Boldly say that this is not a test. This is just a chat. Seeing this, Hao Chujun and the others, as well as Chang Chumo and the others, began to speak freely. Li Shimon, Niu Jinda, Yu Qigong, and the others were dumbfounded at this time. For this kind of military war, they had always resisted soldiers with arms and water with an earthware. If you attacked Lao Tzu would destroy you. But why would they think so much? But at this time, what was this group of little guys talking about? Although they had doubts in their hearts, these little guys' words did make some sense. Even Yu Shernan and the others could not help but stroke their beards and praise at this time. Zhang Feng saw this and nodded. After everyone quieted down, he looked at Li Shimon and said, Lao Li, boy, do you understand why I don't want to get this thing out? This thing is actually a catalyst for ambition. If you have it, even if you defeat the enemy at this time, the enemy will come again. In addition, you have seen the principle of this thing. In fact, it is not complicated. If someone wants to make it, not to mention other things, just now you can make it out. What's more, alchemists are not only in the Tang dynasty. In other words, once we get this thing out today, in order to avoid future troubles, the emperor and the four gods of war of the Tang dynasty will continue to fight. This is ambition. If we don't fight, the enemy will inevitably learn this thing. Once they learn it, it will inevitably cause more serious damage to the Tang dynasty. The embryonic stage of the flourishing age that we are maintaining now, I'm afraid. At this point, Zhang Feng sighed and said, "It's not that I don't want to, but I can't bear to. As long as you can persuade Lord Zhongsun and the emperor, at least until the grain is harvested, you only need to intimidate them temporarily. Then I have nothing to say. I will certainly give you the manufacturing method in the shortest time. I won't touch this thing. If you want to make it, you do it. Or you can give it to the emperor or something. You can make the decision. How about it? As for Ma Zhou, the development of this thing depends on you." Chapter 1356. Zhang Feng was not a bad person, but he was not a good person either. He just didn't want everything he cared about to go up in flames. He just wanted to live a peaceful life. But now, if the matter of Qiuzi was not dealt with, at least hundreds of thousands of people of the Tang dynasty would die, and the consequence would be the opening of the west gate of the Tang dynasty. At that time, not to mention living a peaceful life, even surviving would be a problem. Therefore, from the beginning of the matter, Zhang Feng did not plan whether this thing could be made or not. Instead, he directly threw it to Li Shimin. "Don't you want this thing?" In his opinion, this wasn't a source of income. Instead, it was a huge burden. Looking at the world, although arms dealers had made a lot of money in the past few thousand years, all the people despised them and even hated them. However, sometimes they also respected such people. However, Zhang Feng would rather not have such an honor. To put it bluntly, Zhang Feng was actually an ordinary person. He just wanted to live a peaceful life. Today, he accidentally made this thing. He really did not want to make this thing so early. But because of the long-term war between the Tang dynasty and the Turks, and the current situation, he had to do it. But after all, he was only the dean of the academy. When he had nothing to do, he could act cool and pretend to be tough. But when such a thing fell on his shoulders, he really did not dare to take it. The most important point was, back then, when the plan to deal with the Turks and Tibetans had been set in stone, all of this had already been decided. The reason why Zhang Feng had asked Ma Zhou and the others was because even he himself was unable to determine whether his actions were right or wrong. At this time, Zhang Feng's answer was undoubtedly the most convincing to Yu Shinan and the others. Then, Yu Shinan and the others asked Li Shimin to go down the mountain with the excuse that they had something important to discuss with Zhang Feng. In fact, they were afraid that Li Shimin was urging Zhang Feng. And Li Shimin did not care. After all, this matter was too big. He had to go back and have a good discussion. Otherwise, if this thing was leaked, it would be more serious and fatal than anything else. Of course, Zhang Feng would not object to this matter. But when leaving, Li Shimin still asked dizzily, "Fengzi, are you sure the phosphorus fertilizer can really double the income of all the farmers?" Zhang Feng thought for a while and did not know how to answer. After all, from what he knew, Lao Li seemed to be the one who planted the most herbs, right? After thinking for a while, Zhang Feng said, "Actually, if you really use this thing for the herbs you plant, I don't know if it will increase the income, but it will definitely be much higher than other herbs. But for the farmers, any farmer can double their income. I can use my head to guarantee this." At this time, Li Shimin's heart finally calmed down. Originally, he wanted to ask Zhang Feng if he knew about Kong Ingda's matter, but after thinking about it, Li Shimin gave up. In his view, this matter had already been suppressed by Sun Simiao, so he did not care. Moreover, the most important thing now was to study the power of this gunpowder. Although Zhang Feng had already given him the formula, he still needed to verify it. As for what kind of consequences this thing could cause, whether it could allow 100,000 soldiers to resist at least 300,000 soldiers, it was a matter of whether or not. Li Shimin had just returned to the imperial palace. However, he did not notice that on the way to Shao Mountain, there were more pedestrians than usual, especially on the road to Shao Mountain. However, what he did not notice was that these people were all heading towards Shao Mountain. Near the Golden Light Gate at the West Market entrance of Chang'an City, there was a mansion that occupied at least 3 times the area of other people. The area was not much smaller than Zhang Feng's mansion. It was called Tang Mansion. In front of a gloomy young man stood at least 100 local ruffians and a group of women. Needless to say, those ruffians all had sharp mouths and monkey cheeks, and their eyes were rolling around. However, those women were all fat and chubby, and their mouths never stopped chattering. At this time, the young man coughed slightly and said, "Are you all done?" In an instant, everyone's expression changed and they hurriedly shut their mouths. After everyone quieted down, an old man supported by 2 young maidservants slowly walked out from the door behind the young man. The old man coughed and said, "Everyone, you all saw it. The dean of White Deer College used some unknown method to actually use that poisonous thing on the grain. I don't even know what method he used, but he actually made Dr. Sun side with him. What is this? He wants to wipe out the common people in one fell swoop. Look at Tong Hui Fong. How many people are planting crops now? They are all hiding in the mountains, waiting to watch a good show. Look at us again. What are we? We are people who depend on the grain to live. Have you seen a place that can produce more than 5 dan of grain per mu? 5 dan can only be harvested when the weather is good. If the weather is bad, forget 5 dan. Even 1 or 2 dan would be a blessing from the heavens. Can we tolerate such wild ambitions? We can't." In an instant, those ruffians, and women all shouted angrily. Seeing this, the old man raised his trembling hand and said, "Then what are we waiting for? Let's go to Shao Mountain and settle accounts with him." Chapter 1357. The Tang family. Originally, in the previous dynasty and the Northern Zhou dynasty, they were also a famous family in the Guangzhou area. Originally, their ancestors had been officials in the court in the Sui dynasty and the Northern Zhou dynasty. After Li Yuan founded the country, their life was very miserable. But it was not until Li Shimin ascended the throne that they became a little better. But this was only one aspect. They only recovered some of their land. As for business, they had just started, but they encountered the cooperative and the construction of the Shao Mountain market. With this, the little bit of trade that they had just recovered suffered a serious blow again. Originally, they could still rely on the paper mill to support them. But since Zhang Feng's paper mill came out, their business directly disappeared. It should be known that from textiles, porcelain, and paper, these 3 were the main economic pillars that the Tang family could support. But this time, the most important paper mill was cut off. How could the Tang family not be angry? However, Zhang Feng was inextricably linked to the court. Moreover, this guy was a viscount, a hereditary viscount. Usually, they really did not dare to do anything to him. But this time was different. As an old-school power in Chong, and the Tang family naturally had a lot of land and property. At this time, although it had passed through the hands of Li Yuan and Li Shimin, they still had over 1,000 mu of land and property, all of which had been left behind by their ancestors. But this damned bastard Dan had actually cut off their paper-making business, and now he was actually cutting off their source of income. How could this not make these people, who relied on these fields to make a fortune, angry? Most of their food and land came from tenants and rented out. If it was really as Sun Simiao and Kong Yingda said, at that time food would become the most worthless thing in the world. Although there were more. But there were more people. Who could they sell the food to at that time? This was the existence that made them angry the most. Therefore, all the old-school forces in Guangzhou had joined forces in the past 2 days in order to use these people's sea tactics to build momentum in Shao Mountain. If Zhang Feng was tactful and could pass this phosphate fertilizer to them, especially that kind of technology, then it would be fine. But if not, this was a big plan. On the night that Kong Yingda personally went to Shao Mountain to bring back the news, they were discussing. After all, the poor people should not have this thing. Once this thing was in their hands, how could they, who relied on the land passed down by their ancestors, live? Moreover, they also learned from the people who went to school on the mountain and worked on the mountain that Zhang Feng also made something else that could improve the quality of seeds. How could they not be moved? Which poor people deserved to have this thing? They did not. Therefore, on one hand, they were advocating that this thing was poisonous fertilizer, and it was something that Zhang Feng wanted to harm them. Their purpose. It was because they knew that Zhang Feng was easy to talk to. Whenever he encountered something troublesome, he would lose his cool. He would give you whatever you wanted. This was the biggest thing they were relying on this time. Once the matter. Didn't Kong Ingda spread this thing? This is what he said. If you have the ability, go and find him. Sun Simiao Doctor? Wasn't this bullshit? With their status, how could they invite Dr. Sun? Wasn't that a joke? Therefore, this was the biggest thing they were relying on. While the Tang family was making their move, the rest of the big families were also making their moves. The leader of Tang Jia's team this time was Tang Haoyan, the young master of the Tang family who had just married the only daughter of Minister Zhou of the Honglu Temple. Although he married into the family and was less than 20 years old, he was already a 5th-grade official. What kind of glory was this for the Tang family? With him taking action, even if the people in the military camp tried to stop them outside, as long as they had a good reason, those soldiers could not do anything to them. Besides, no one said that they were not allowed to do business in the market square on the mountain. In the end, the mighty crowd still alarmed Niu Jinda, who was resting in the military camp. Niu Jinda should have gone to the mountain long ago, but because of his health and the military affairs at this time, he just came back from the palace. He planned to make some arrangements in the military camp, and the most important thing was to send Zhang Feng's military training equipment to Chotzi City immediately. On the other hand, it was also to supervise the production of the pure steel ballista and crossbow machine at this time. After all, these things were basically under the jurisdiction of the Chong and military seal now. This place was quite safe and close to the mountain, so it saved him the disadvantage of going back and forth. In addition, this was the only way to get to Shao Mountain, so he could not make any military movements during this period of time. After all, he had just received a secret letter from the emperor that some big families in the Guangzhong seemed to be a little dishonest. But at this time, a loud and urgent voice rang out from outside the tent. Report. Niu Jinda did not take it seriously. He changed his robe and calmly asked the person to come in. What's the matter? General, just now the guard stationed in Mount Shao said that the people of the Honglu Temple are taking a large number of people up the mountain. The Honglu Temple? Niu Jinda was stunned. What are they doing here? I'm not sure, but it seems that an important envoy from the palace is coming recently, so the Honglu Temple sent people up the mountain to buy some things. Niu Jinda heard this and said angrily, Do you need to report such a small matter? Hearing this, the soldier gave a new military salute and said, General, they brought at least a few hundred people. We can't stop them, so we let them in. That's why we came to report. What did you say? How many people? At this time, Niu Jinda also realized that something was wrong. Seeing this, the soldier trembled and said in a trembling voice, About 300 to 500 people. Hearing this, Niu Jinda's face suddenly changed. Men, gather everyone in the tent and quickly surround the market square. Don't let anyone go. Chapter 1358. If he hadn't heard the emperor's secret report in the palace, he wouldn't have taken it seriously. But he had heard about it in the palace, and he had just received another secret letter from the emperor. What did this mean? The Tang residents, the Bai residents, the Mi residents, the Gao residents. These people were all old in Guangzhong. These families had been in Guangzhong for hundreds of years. Although they were a little lonely, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. The emperor had told him to pay more attention. In other words, these dishonest fellows were about to make a move. However, he received this news at this moment. How could he not be furious? If he still couldn't think of something at this time, he wouldn't be worthy of being called a war god. However, at that moment, Yu Qigong called out to him from within the tent. Wait! Go out and wait for a moment. After sending the soldier away, Yu Qigong frowned and said, Old Niu, this isn't right. Think about it. Lord Zhou of the Chamberlain of Dependencies has always been dutiful, and he should know something. But for him to jump out at this time, isn't it a little unreasonable? Niu Jinda, who was already irritable, immediately paled. So you're saying that this matter might not have been done by someone from the Chamberlain of Dependencies? No! Yu Qigong muttered to himself, then called in the soldier again and asked, Let me ask you, what is the age and appearance of the leader? The soldier replied, In reply to the general, that person is only about 20 years old. That's right. Yuchigong said, Old Nyo, do you still remember the wedding of Lord Zhou of the Chamberlain of Dependencies a few days ago? Of course Nyo Jinda knew this. Everyone in the court knew, and it had happened at this time. With this thought, Nyo Jinda asked in surprise, could it be that the leader is Lord Zhou's son-in-law? Very likely. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to get his hands on a document from the Chamberlain of Dependencies. Furthermore, there are only 2 or 3 people over the age of 20 in the Chamberlain of Dependencies. Only someone very close to Lord Zhou would be able to get his hands on a document. Moreover, Lord Zhou's son-in-law is the 3rd young master of the Tang family. Can you think of anything now? The Tang family. As expected, it was the Tang family. Nyo Jinda's expression suddenly changed. Just as he was about to rush out, Yuchigong held him back. Don't be impulsive. Let me finish. Nyo Jinda glared at him. Look at the situation now. If we continue talking, there will definitely be chaos at the foot of the mountain. Yuchigong's expression was solemn as well. That's for sure. However, no matter how chaotic it is at the foot of the mountain, it's fine as long as it's safe on the mountain. Hurry up and go up the mountain. Follow Feng Zi. As long as nothing happens to Feng Zi, I'll take care of the matters at the foot of the mountain. Hearing this, Nyo Jinda slapped his head and said, All right, I'll go then. While speaking, Nyo Jinda had already rushed out. Only then did Yuchigong begin to gather his troops. On the other side, the market square at the foot of Shao Mountain basically had an industry in Chang'an City. The market square of Shao Mountain basically followed the style of Chang'an City, but it was different from Chang'an. The market square here was divided into a main street. On this street, no one was allowed to set up stalls, mainly because of image issues. On both sides of the main street, there were 2 auxiliary streets. On the auxiliary streets was the original appearance of the market square of Shao Mountain. It was even livelier than the 2 markets in Chang'an City combined. After all, White Deer College's reputation was there for all to see. Moreover, there was no curfew here. Basically, there were still people doing business at night. After all, the workers and students on the mountain only had time at night. Today, everyone was doing business as usual. However, at this moment, hundreds of people suddenly rushed in from outside. For the market square of Shao Mountain, this was nothing unusual. The only unusual thing was that after these people rushed into the market square, they instantly disappeared without a trace like fish in the sea. After that, the whole market square was suddenly filled with very bad rumors and slanders. Let me tell you, there's something going on the mountain right now. Do you know? What? You don't know? It's spread all over Chang'an City. Look, didn't a group of half-dead people come to the mountain some time ago? But how many of them did you see come down the mountain alive? You don't know? How long have you been on the mountain? You don't know? Let me tell you. The things that those people brought back are poisonous. Didn't you see some people coming down the mountain and those doctors in Chang'an City wearing those white things called masks? Yes. Now you remember, right? Let me tell you. Hurry up and run. Didn't the miracle doctor, Sun Simiao, come down the mountain yesterday? Do you know what the miracle doctor did? He went to ask for help. He said that the guy named Zhang Feng on the mountain wanted to harm people. He made that kind of poison into something called phosphate fertilizer. He said that if it was used in the fields of the Zhuang family, it would increase the yield. Think about it. That thing can poison people to death. Even the miracle doctor can't do anything about it. Do you think the food grown from that thing can be eaten? The dean of this college is evil. He wants the lives of all the lowly people. Maybe the pork you eat now is also poisonous. Haven't you seen pork before? How did such a coquettish thing change its taste in their hands? Chapter 1359. More and more of these people were appearing. The people at the foot of the mountain did not believe it. But there were too many of them. These people did not do anything and seemed to be familiar with the market. They knew which businesses belonged to White Deer College and which businesses belonged to Tonghui Lane. They all avoided these people and then specifically chose places with a lot of people and began to spread rumors. In the beginning, these people were still restrained, but slowly, these ruffians and women returned to their original nature. As long as you dared to say that you didn't believe them, they would instantly surround you. If you still didn't believe them or dared to talk back, they would come up and beat you up. Slowly, the incident here alerted the patrolling guards. However, before the bailiffs arrived, this group of people dispersed and disappeared without a trace. However, once the bailiffs left, they would madly seek revenge on those who had sought out the bailiffs. In an instant, the whole market was shrouded in a dark cloud. At this moment, Cripple Wong had a rare day of rest. He had planned to buy some useful toys in the market and bring them back for his newly married daughter to play with. But when he was squatting in front of a Hu merchant's stall, at least 3 women suddenly appeared and surrounded Cripple Wong. "Yo, brother, look at you. Are you buying toys for your daughter?" Cripple Wong did not take it seriously, but he still excitedly introduced his daughter to the woman. At this moment, when the woman knew that Cripple Wong was doing manual labor on the mountain, she immediately became interested. "Brother, are you from Tonghui Lane?" Cripple Wong shook his head. "How could I be so lucky? It's not like that." After confirming Cripple Wong's identity, the 3 women's interest was piqued. "Brother, do you know what that bastard Zhang Feng is doing on the mountain?" When Cripple Wong heard this, his face instantly changed. "What did you say?" He hated it when people badmouth Zhang Feng. But the person who badmouthed Zhang Feng was a woman, so he could not do anything. If it was a man, he would have punched him. "How dare you badmouth me? You're courting death." But Uncle Ho's face changed. Another woman pushed Cripple Wong and sobbed, "Oh, to tell you the truth, my husband was killed by that goddamn Zhang Feng on the mountain. But when you got home, you didn't dare to say a single word. Do you know why? Me, my daughter, and the baby are all being watched. If my man dares to say no, we'll lose our lives. You shrew, shut up Lao Tzu." How could Cripple Wong listen to this? He suddenly scolded. It instantly attracted countless people. Seeing this, the woman rolled her eyes and immediately squatted on the ground to make a scene. "That goddamn Zhang Feng. He's made my man so miserable. You forced my man to take poison, and you also want me to not tell anyone about it. Once I tell anyone, you'll destroy my entire family. Woo woo woo. How dare you?" Cripple Wong was furious, but he was just about to step forward and beat him up. However, he was instantly surrounded by a group of people. Cripple Wong was stunned, but the 3 women pointed at Cripple Wong and pinched him. In an instant, Cripple Wong's face was bruised and bruised. At this moment, the woman who was squatting on the ground and crying said, "Brother, I know you're suffering. Look, we're all victims of that scoundrel. Yesterday, Lord Kong Ingda came to find us and stood up for us. That's why we dared to go up the mountain. If you're being oppressed, tell us. Let everyone know what kind of person that goddamn Zhang Feng is." "That's right, brother. This is your only way out now. This is also an opportunity. Think about it. Lord Kong is a 3rd-rank official and a virtuous official of the dynasty. Even the emperor respects." Bam! Cripple Wong finally could not take it anymore. While the people who caught him were not paying attention, he forcibly broke free and punched the woman in the face. In an instant, the woman fainted with blood gushing out of her face. This time, the people who trapped him were furious. "Wow, this old man is actually that goddamn Zhang Feng's informant. Men, beat him to death." At this moment, those merchants, barbarian merchants, and those who were buying were all dumbfounded. No one knew if this was true or not, but they knew that these people seemed to be from an organization, and it was not an ordinary organization. In addition, they were talking about Kong Ingda just now. Could it be that all of this was his idea? This time, those who were afraid were terrified, and those who were not were beaten up. The entire market was in chaos at this moment. After all, Cripple Wong came from a military background. How could these hooligans be compared to him? Although his legs were indeed crippled, he still had some tricks up his sleeves. Although this group of people was very fierce, they did not dare to kill. This allowed Cripple Wong to seize the opportunity to escape from the battle. He fought and retreated as he wanted to inform the guards at the mountain gate. At this moment, from the window of the 2nd floor of a hotel, the voice of the youth surnamed Tang came. "Catch him and kill him." Are you all stupid pigs? He's going to inform the guards. Chapter 1360. This time, those hooligans and shrews were anxious. What would happen if he really went to look for them? One had to know that the guards at the entrance of the mountain weren't ordinary people. Although they were some stinky soldiers, they were still people who had seen blood. They could really kill someone. Moreover, trespassing into the academy was definitely a serious crime. Even if they were killed, they would die in vain. Before they came, they had all been strictly informed of the situation. Their task was to spread rumors in the market, and when the rumors were spread, they would send people to distract the guards and finally go up the mountain. This was all planned in advance. Once the people in the market were mobilized, what could they do? But at this time, the rumors in the market had just spread for less than an hour. To alarm them at this time was simply courting death. The youth surnamed Tang was about to explode. Weren't these bastards very troublesome usually? How did it become like this today? Although they had successfully diverted the conflict and hatred to Kong Ingda, it was not enough. They wanted to go up the mountain. At the very least, they wanted to snatch those things made by Zhang Feng and force Zhang Feng to show up to satisfy the needs of these big clans. But at this time, if they attracted the attention of the guards at the gate of the academy, the mountain would inevitably be alarmed, and then all their previous efforts would be wasted. This was the last thing they wanted to see. This was also the main purpose of the Tang family and the other families this time. First, they would use force. If force did not work, they had a second method, which was to come out personally and use soft tactics. This was all planned in advance. But they never thought that this group of idiots would not ask this guy what he was doing first. At this time, Cripple Wang was after all lame and old. After all, he was not a match for these hooligans. He did not run far before he was caught by that group of people and tied up. Just at this time, he caught a glimpse of Qian Wanli and the others from the corner of his eye and hurriedly shouted, "Qian Wanli! Help! Call for help! Someone is making trouble here, to the dean." This shout instantly made the air in the market stagnate. The next moment, Qian Wanli and the others, who had just walked out of the paper mill, suddenly turned around and saw Cripple Wang, who was tied up and pulled to a corner not far away. In an instant, Qian Wanli turned pale with fright, and those hooligans did not expect to meet them at this critical moment. It was impossible to think of anything else at this time. A shrew pointed at Qian Wanli and said, "Catch them! They are the accomplices of that damned Zhang Feng. The white paper they made is made of human skin." In an instant, everyone rushed to Qian Wanli like crazy, cackled. As for Qian Wanli, he had seen the world before. In addition, he had been learning from Zhang Feng all this time. How could he not understand? He did not even care for the white paper on his back. He angrily shouted, "What are you still standing there for? Run!" With this shout, the students were awakened. Imitating Qian Wanli, they desperately ran to the mountain gate. But they were still a step too late. After all, the distance between here and these people was not too far. Moreover, they were carrying a large bundle of white paper on their back. When some of them took off the white paper, they were already pressed to the ground. In an instant, those fist-sized feet, like raindrops, fell on their bodies. Qian Wanli didn't care about anything else and ran forward as if his life depended on it. But suddenly, he heard a buzzing sound behind him. Qian Wanli did not have time to think, and tilted his head. In an instant, a fist-sized stone flew past his ear, and there was a rope behind him. Then, the rope, under Qian Wanli's horrified gaze, bounced back, and then tightly wrapped around his neck. Qian Wanli knew that he was finished. At this time, his body was being dragged back uncontrollably. He did not care about anything else. Hastily, Jace shouted, "Help! Someone wants to murder the dean. Someone come. Quickly call for help. Someone wants to kill." Ah! Without waiting for his voice to fade, a wooden stick, as thick as an arm, fiercely smashed Qian Wanli's temple. In an instant, Qian Wanli's second half of his sentence came to an abrupt end, and Qian Wanli's eye, which was smashed, instantly spurted out a column of blood, and then softly fell to the ground. Silence. Silence. There was a deathly silence. The air seemed to be suffocating in an instant. Everyone looked in horror at Chen Wanli, who was lying in a pool of blood, constantly spitting out blood and constantly twitching. Their bodies turned cold. And the students of White Deer College, as well as Cripple Wong, were furious. Help! Murder! Dean's direct disciple, Chen Wanli, has been killed. Help! Are you all dead? And the youth surnamed Tang, who was in the restaurant, was also frightened by this group of pigs. Trembling all over, he looked at Chen Wanli. Suddenly, he heard a faint sound of horse hooves and a bugle horn from the mountain gate. His vision turned black, and a middle-aged man behind him was also pale. Looking at the youth, he asked in a trembling voice, "Young master, let's go. The Chong and military camp has been mobilized. If we don't leave now, it will be too late." "Okay. Go quickly." Chapter 1361. The entire Shaoshan market was no longer as prosperous and peaceful as it used to be. Instead, it was filled with panic. At this time, everyone understood that someone might be stirring up trouble. Before, it was just intimidation and beating. That was fine, but now someone had died. No matter what the reason was, they would not let it go. And at the moment when the youth surnamed Tang left, those street thugs, hooligans, and those long-mouthed women all panicked. As these people tried to shift the blame to each other, they hurriedly wanted to escape away. However, right at this moment, the chaos finally attracted Old He and the old village head who had just come out of the food factory. The old village head was responsible for the order of this Shao Mountain market. How could he stay calm after hearing such a chaos? But when they arrived, they saw Chen Wanli lying motionless in a pool of blood, and the group of students who had been beaten unconscious, and Cripple Wong. Their faces instantly changed. Who did this? The old village chief was angry. He pointed at the people on the ground. And those people who were looking for trouble, seeing that things were serious, did not dare to look at the old village chief. They all pushed the blame and pretended not to know. Even more, they took the opportunity to get close to the old village chief and the old village chief. A woman who looked relatively kind laughed, avoiding the important and dwelling on the trivial. As she walked toward the old village chief, she said, "You are old son, right? We all heard your name in Chang'an City. This kid said bad things about you, saying that you and Zhang Feng were cheating everyone and made poisonous pork for everyone to eat. We were angry and beat him, but who would have thought? Why are you still standing there? Kill him for me. If we don't kill him, none of us can live." She completely ignored the dead people on the ground and the students who had fainted. But how could her actions be hidden from the old village chief and Old He? The two of them had been on guard when she was talking and approaching, but they still did not expect that this damn woman would come up and hold them back. In an instant, the hundreds of troublemakers behind her, after being stunned for a moment, showed their original fierceness and rushed up. After all, Old He was in the prime of his life. When he became an adult, he had to do hard work. He was not someone a woman could hold. In addition, Chen Wanli and the others acted recklessly, and this woman did not care at all. How could they not be suspicious? At this moment, the woman put her hand on Old He's shoulder. Old He viciously smashed the woman's elbow. Taking advantage of the pain, he also viciously punched the hand that was grabbing onto the old scholar's lapel. In an instant, a crisp cracking sound was heard, and the woman screamed miserably. "Ah! God damn it, my hand! Murder! Someone come quickly! D***eminent. The people from White Deer College are killing people." In the time it took for him to shout, Old He pulled the old scholar and ran towards the mountain gate. The woman's voice was loud enough to begin with. When she shouted, the people chasing after her couldn't help but feel fear in their hearts. They no longer had any thoughts of chasing after her. The woman's voice, coupled with Old Ho's shouts, could be heard. In the end, the guards at the mountain gate heard them. However, they did not know the situation here. Only 3 to 5 people hurried over with football bats. Before they could get close, the old village chief hurriedly shouted, "What are you still standing there for? The students on the mountain were beaten to death by these F***king dogs. Hurry and call for help." What? The guards were aghast. Beaten to death a student on the mountain? What kind of situation was this? Old he and the old scholar looked as if they were running for their lives. They were not lying, and there were still people chasing after them. This time, regardless of whether the old village chief was telling the truth or not, these two were the people the dean trusted the most. How could they be careless? They all pulled out their baseball bats and rushed forward. The group of ruffians finally retreated. However, they still slowly hooted and carried the woman who was screaming miserably. They angrily surrounded them, wanting an explanation. The guards were also in a difficult position. They wanted to call for help, but they were blocked and could not leave. They wanted to hit them, but they did not dare to. The rule on the mountain was that they could not be the first to attack. The old village chief was so angry that he scolded them for being blockheads. Idiots! Old man saw it with his own eyes. If not for old he's quick hands and feet, we would be in the same state as Chen Wanli. Do you think you can see us? The guards were stunned. Old he looked at the group of people who were surrounding them with a gloomy face, but were not as fierce as before. He said, "They killed Chen Wanli. You should know Cripple Wong, right? We don't know if Cripple Wong is dead or alive. Why don't you go and take a look?" Cripple Wong? Chen Wanli? Cripple Wong and the rest must be familiar with this place. If it wasn't for him, how could they have the opportunity to eat on the mountain? It could be said that on this mountain, there were people who did not know Li Gan and the other famous people around the dean. They could also not know the four great scholars. However, if anyone dared to not recognize Zhang Feng and Cripple Wong, who had given them food to eat, then they would be untactful. Besides, Chen Wanli would go up and down the mountain several times every day. This kid was very polite. Who would not like him? Many of these uncouth soldiers were thinking of passing on their skills to Chen Wanli. Some even wanted to arrange a marriage for this kid. This kid was very likable. But now, in an instant, these guards showed their deterrence in the army. They waved the baseball bats in their hands and shouted, "All of you, shut up for Lao Tzu." When the group of troublemakers saw that they were exposed, they also panicked. However, how could the woman with the broken arm care so much? She stared at them with bloodshot eyes and cursed. Almost from the beginning, she had not stopped scolding them. She had scolded all 18 generations of her ancestors. At this time, seeing this, she cried and screamed again. You bastards! There are only 5 of them. They are the bad guys who want to end our bloodline. There are only 5 of them. Are you all scared? If you're a man, then fight for me. Didn't you see that they were the ones who started the fight? If you didn't do it, we would all be trapped here today. Chapter 1362. In an instant, the hesitant people's eyes glinted fiercely again. The woman hooted again. Look! Look! My man has already scouted the mountain gate. There are less than 30 people. How many people do we have? We have a few hundred people. Even if each of us spit, we can give him... Bitch! Shut up, Lao Tzu! Go, Dan! Call for help! The guards were enraged. They had seen arrogant people before, but they had never seen such shameless people before. Originally, they wanted to calm things down and see if it was the same as what the old village chief said. But now, was there even a need to see? This group of people wanted to kill people. They had been in the army for so many years. What kind of situation had they not seen? Looking at the situation now, they understood half of the situation. The leader of the group, a man in his 30s or 40s, took a step forward. Then he sandwiched a younger man in the middle. In an instant, 4 of the 5 people formed a battle formation. The younger man appeared in the middle of the 4. The old village chief and he also appeared in the middle of the 4 people. At this moment, the man's gaze was icy cold as he gazed at the group that was slowly moving forward. He shouted, "If you dare to take another step forward, you'll become enemies with my White Deer Academy. If you stop now, the dean of my academy will definitely give you an answer." Dong! Just as the leader was speaking, half of a brick flew out of nowhere and smashed into the head of one of the men. In the next moment, the group of people exploded. *CK your grandpa. Smash them to death. Today we have no way out. If we don't kill them and run before the army arrives, none of us will live. Brothers, kill them. Kill. At this moment, the man finally understood what was going on. This group of people was really looking for trouble. And it wasn't just any ordinary trouble. At this moment, how could he care so much? As he dodged the bricks, the baseball bat in his hand flew up and down. One by one, he took care of the people who surrounded him. However, this group of people seemed to have gone crazy. Moreover, they were like local ruffians who had gone crazy. They used all kinds of despicable methods. Not long after, even the old village chief who was being protected by Old Ho was knocked unconscious, and one of the 5 men was still unable to rush out. At this moment, once again smashing into the gap between a few people, the leader of the guards coldly glanced at everyone, then pointed at the mountain gate and roared, "Break through the mountain gate! Kill them all!" Yes. At this moment, everyone had once again returned to the state they were in when they were fighting the enemy in the army. Although they had been warned not to attack ordinary people, especially the people of the Tang dynasty, at this time, these people were no longer human. They wanted to deal with the academy. Furthermore, each and every one of them had used lethal attacks. Even though they had been through hundreds of battles, there were still many wounds on their bodies. There were even 2 people whose arms were limp. The group of hooligans were also terrified. However, the more terrified they were, the more they wanted to live. And the only way to survive was to stop these people from leaking information and create an opportunity for them to escape. Fellow villagers, look, this is the so-called White Deer College. Do you see their true colors? How is this an academy? This is simply a military training ground. How can an academy have such fierce bandits? Don't just watch. Let's subdue them and go up the mountain to personally ask that damned bastard Zhang Feng what he wants. Also, you should have heard of what that bastard is tinkering with on the mountain. It's a poison that allows us to produce thousands of caddies of grain per moo. Don't you want to go and see? At this moment, seeing that they could not take down the mountain after a long time and that there were large numbers of casualties, these people were terrified. They all shouted and called for help in front of the surrounding merchants. However, the more they shouted, the fewer people there were. Many people even saw Qian Wanli abandoned on the ground. After confirming whether Qian Wanli was dead or alive, they hurriedly rushed to the mountain gate. This time, these people were even more terrified. They attacked those who wanted to go up the mountain even more crazily and chaotically. In an instant, the entire market that belonged to the Hu merchants was in chaos. The commotion here, coupled with the fact that these 5 people had been here for a long time, finally alarmed the guards at the gate. While standing guard at the entrance of the mountain, they also sent out 20 people to head over to this place. Woo woo woo! The guards at the mountain gate all sounded the bugle horn. The melodious and hurried sound of the bugle horn instantly made the people surrounding the 5 guards tremble. They were done for. This was not good. Everyone temporarily stopped their attacks and anxiously searched for that youth surnamed Tang. But he was nowhere to be seen. This time, they finally panicked. They all threw away the weapons in their hands and pretended to be panicking passers-by as they fled. However, at this moment, the rumbling of horse hooves and the sound of armor clashing against each other caused everyone's faces to turn ashen. Under their terrified gazes, Yuchi Gong's men were here. To be more precise, it was Yuchi Gong's number 1 general, Jia Eru. Jia Eru rode his purplish-red horse and swept his blood-dripping halberd across the crowd. His eyes were cold as he angrily shouted, "Everyone kneel where you are. After 3 breaths, everyone who is still standing will be killed without mercy." Chapter 1363. This time, the guards, Old He, and the others finally breathed a sigh of relief. Under Jia Eru's command, the group of archers behind him had already knocked their bows and looked coldly at the crowd. Old He and the others breathed a sigh of relief and squeezed through the crowd to Jia Eru's side. Jia Eru naturally recognized this group of guards. To be precise, the leader was once his immediate superior. When he saw Jia Eru, he hurriedly made the crowd part and hurriedly got off his horse. He looked at the man and asked in horror, "Old Ma, what happened to you? What happened here?" The man named Old Ma spat out a mouthful of spit and scanned the crowd. "Don't ask Lao Tzu. Damn it, why are you only here now? If you were 10 minutes later, these bastards would have fought their way up the mountain. Hurry up and tie these people up. Jia-eru heard this and his heart trembled. He hurriedly waved his hand and a large number of soldiers appeared. They did not move, but each of them had a knife behind them. If they moved, they would die. Seeing this, Jia-eru noticed the bleeding wounds on their bodies. He was shocked and hurriedly wanted to call the military doctor, but he was stopped by old Ma. Let's go take a look at Cripple Wang and Chen Wanli first. These bastards killed people. What? Jia-eru heard this and his face instantly turned cold. The group of soldiers was even more shocked. How dare they kill people in the mountains? Motherf ****. Just how vicious and evil was he? Jia-eru did not have time to think and hurriedly helped the crowd to Chen Wanli's side. After all, Chen Wanli's injuries were the most serious. But when the crowd saw Chen Wanli lying in a pool of blood with half his head smashed, they could not help but become even more furious. He was so angry that his whole body was trembling. Damn it, he's still a child. How can you do this? Are your hearts made of stone? Jia-eru did not have time to think and shouted angrily at the doctor. What are you still doing here? Are you waiting for Lao Tzu to reward you? Go and take a look at them. F***ck your mother. The military doctor could not wait any longer and hurried over to Cripple Wang and the others. After confirming that only Chen Wanli was dead, he heaved a sigh of relief. However, the anger in his heart was still uncontrollable. Men, take them all back to the army's water prison and interrogate them to find out who the mastermind is. As Jia-eru spoke, he added, at all costs. Yes. Instantly, the group of people panicked. If it were the prison of the Chang and local government or the supreme judiciary, it would still be acceptable. But this was a military prison. What kind of place was that? That place had always been easy to enter but difficult to leave. Basically, once you went in, you could forget about coming out. That place had a complete set of methods to interrogate foreign spies. You could commit crimes anywhere, but once you were sent to that place, congratulations. It would be best if you killed yourself on the way there. Otherwise, even wanting to die would be a luxury. At this time, although the common people did not know about these things, these street thugs and hooligans were very clear about it. Ever since they took the money and prepared to do this, they had already thought about everything. Now, it seemed that everyone could not help but panic. Sir, you can't kill us. We're innocent. If you dare to kill us, Lord Kong Ingda will never let you go. Yes. We were sent here by Lord Kong. Lord Kong said that if you want to arrest someone, arrest Kong Ingda first. And if you want to arrest someone, arrest that damned Zhang Feng first. This woman's man was killed on the mountain, and not even his bones were left. We're here to avenge her. You don't arrest such a person, but you arrest us common people. We won't accept it. Yes, we won't accept it. I want to lodge a complaint. We're innocent. At this point, they only dared to insist that Kong Ingda and Zhang Feng were dead. However, they did not mention that they had beaten someone to death. This made Jia-eru so angry that he laughed. After Jia-eru found someone to properly dispose of Chen Wanli's body, he slowly squatted in front of the man who was shouting the loudest. He lifted the man's chin with the tip of the mo knife in his hand and said, "You said her man died on the mountain? What evidence do you have?" "No, we're from the same village. I've seen him before, but I haven't seen him recently. I'm not allowed to go up the mountain to look for him." Pa! Jia-eru hit the man's face with the back of the mo knife. In an instant, the back of the blunt mo knife cut a big hole in the man's mouth. Ah! The man instantly screamed in horror. Jia-eru ignored him. Then, he looked at the woman who had lost her hand and was still crying and cursing at the top of her lungs. He still held the knife to her forehead and asked indifferently, "You said that your man works in the mountains. What proof do you have?" "Every day, our Shao mountain guards have a team of people who go in and out of the mountain to register, so we know the details of each of them. Tell me, what's your man's name?" Chapter 1364. Where do you live? At this moment, the woman finally felt fear under the cold knife. Even the smell of urine instantly spread with her as the center. Jia Eru frowned slightly and lost his patience. My patience is limited. If you don't tell me in 3 breaths, die. Kill her. Sir, it's this bitch who came looking for trouble. I know her. Her man was King killed by her 12 years ago. How could she have another man? In Chang'an City, they are famous for being wicked women. Sir, if you go to Chang'an City and ask around, you will know that she brought people here today. If we dare to question her, we will be beaten by her and these people. Sir, if you don't kill her, God will not forgive you. Her name is Lu Wang Clan. She used to live in Guangfufang. In her early years, she plotted with villains and killed her man. After that, she and the local ruffians in her room did some unspeakable things. You just need to go to the Chang and local government and ask. At this time, the businessmen who were scared by their beatings came out one after another to denounce the crimes of these people. Even the barbarian businessmen came out. Jia Eru looked at all this and then looked at the old village head, Old He and Old Ma. He waved his hand and said, Guards, aren't the people from the Chang and local government patrolling the mountain? Where are they? Are they all dead today? At this time, the onlookers also realized this important thing. It seemed that they didn't see the patrolling officers today, and it was after these people appeared. Could it be these patrolling officers were killed by them? Old Ma simply dressed the wound and stared at the woman coldly. Then he said, Everyone, go find the patrolling officers quickly. Eru, go inform Nyo Weili of the Chang and local government. If he doesn't want to die, ask him to come to the mountain immediately. Ahem. At this time, Cripple Wang slowly woke up, which instantly attracted everyone's attention. When Jia Eru saw Cripple Wang, he hurried forward. Brother Wang, are you feeling better? Cripple Wang ignored him and looked around. When he saw Qian Wanli wrapped in a straw mat, his eyes turned red. He grabbed Qian Wanli's collar and said, Eru, back in the army. Lao Tzu and the others sacrificed more than 10 lives to save you. I've never asked you for anything, but if you don't kill these bastards today, Lao Tzu will chop you up. Brother Wang. Jia Eru choked. He nodded heavily. Don't worry. The general knows about this. Everything is under our control. Hearing this, Cripple Wang sighed and stopped talking. Instead, he asked, Wanli is the most important person to the dean. Moreover, you know the dean's temper. Do as you see fit. If you don't do it well, even if the dean kills you now, no one will say a word, including the general. Jia Eru naturally knew the importance of this matter. There was no need for him to say it. Who in the army did not know about the incident that Zhang Feng had chased them out? Although Zhang Feng had only been to the army twice, his title of army god had always been etched in the hearts of all the soldiers. Jia Eru's eyes were red as he growled. You can rest at ease and recuperate. These bastards, if I don't pull out their tendons and skin them alive today, I won't believe in Jia. Found them. At this time, a group of armored soldiers hurried over. Following behind the soldiers were 13 people in tamed clothes who were carried over by others. But at this time, this group of people was already tied up. Jia Eru jumped off the rope of a Yamen runner and pointed his knife at the woman. Do you know this person? Yes. This bastard. Even if he turns into ashes, Lao Tzu will still recognize him. Hearing this, the woman's face instantly turned pale. The rest of the women's faces were even paler. There was a saying that one would rather offend the soldiers than the Yamen runners. There was nothing else. These soldiers did not come in and out of Chang'an City often, but this group of Yamen runners patrolled Chang'an City every day. If they held a grudge against them, they would not have a good life. Today, because they wanted to cause trouble, the first thing they did was to control these Yamen runners. They could not let this group of people see their faces. Otherwise, they would definitely die. But they did not dare to kill. If they caused trouble, they would at most be imprisoned for a few days. If they fought, they would at most be beaten with a plank and then locked up for half a year. Then they would be fine. At that time, they could control it, but they were afraid of killing. But who would have thought that Qian Wanli's incident would happen? In the end, things became more and more out of control. They had no choice but to kill to solve the problem. But in the end, they were still a step too late. At this time, the Yamen runners identified them one by one. Basically, not a single one of them was left out. Chapter 1365. At other times, these bailiffs might turn a blind eye to it. At that time, they might even be able to get some benefits. After all, they had to see each other frequently. But at this time, no one dared to do that. Where was this place? This was Zhang Feng's territory. Moreover, they got a lot of benefits in daily life. Especially after the county magistrate Niu Weili cooperated with Zhang Feng in the basketball business. All the people in the county government made a fortune. They dared not mess around in this place. Otherwise, they might lose their jobs. In addition, these bastards dared to play big and even killed people. They even injured the group of soldiers. What was this? This was clearly something that only bandits and bandits could do. How could they be biased? Even if they were given 100 heads, they would not dare to do that. This bastard is Yi Dianshuan, who lives near the Shuani sect. Last year, he stole from a brothel and was beaten half to death. In the end, he mortgaged his thatched shed and was locked in the government for half a year. This one is Wuxia, this one is... Under the identification of the runners one by one, Jairu also got a hemp rope for each of them. He tied the rope with the Horse King's thorn on it. If they did not struggle, it would be better. Once they struggled, the thorns, which were half a finger long and had barbs, would pierce into their flesh and make them beg for death. However, even with that being the case, they were still busy for over 2 hours. Almost all the students had woken up. But at this moment, along with the sound of quarreling, a large number of people came to the entrance of the market on Shao Mountain. The leaders were the Tang family, the Mi family, and the others. What are you doing? Are you rebelling? As soon as the leaders of these families arrived, they immediately put their hands on their hips and pointed at the noses of Jairu and the others and scolded them. Son of a bitch, who gave you the right? This is the market. Do you think you are qualified to make trouble here? F***CKU, you army ruffians. Let's see if old man doesn't go to the Supreme Court tomorrow to sue you for murdering students on the street and robbing goods. Do you still have the law in your eyes? Come on, untie these people quickly. Yes. Master, we are innocent. We are innocent. These damned bastards suddenly rushed out of the barracks. We were just buying and selling things when these damned bastards helped us without any explanation. Furthermore, look at that. That student was beaten to death just to speak up for us. Master, you have to uphold justice for us. At this moment, the woman and the others seemed to have found their backbone and started shouting. As for the Tang family, the Mi family, and the others, they brought their hired thugs to confront Jairu and the others. Jairu was in a difficult position. However, he still blocked the front. He waved his Mo sword and shouted, "Whoever dares to take another step forward, dies." At this moment, the young master of the Tang family waved his fan, slowly walked forward and said indifferently, "Brat, who do you think you are? Do you think you're worthy of blocking our way? Who do you think you are? How dare you cause trouble in the academy?" At this moment, Old Ma took the Mo saber from Jairu's hand and slowly looked straight into the eyes of the Tang clan's young master. "Who do you think you are? Why are you interfering in the affairs of the academy?" "Ha ha!" The Tang clan's young master sneered. "Who do I think I am? Ha ha! How dare you?" Young Master Tang is the son-in-law of the current Chamberlain of Dependencies, Lord Zhou. He is also a supervisor of the Chamberlain of Dependencies, a 5th-rank official. "Who do you think you are? How dare you speak to Lord Tang like this?" "Kneel." The group of ruffians around the Tang clan's young master looked as if they had seen their saviors. They surrounded him and berated Jairu and Old Ma, completely ignoring the disdain on the Tang clan's young master's face. At this moment, the Mi family, Gao family, and Bai family also stepped forward to berate them. "Look at what you've done. Is there any law here? Although this place is indeed White Deer College's territory, this is still the territory of the Tang dynasty. Furthermore, this is right under the emperor's feet. Look at what you've done. This is knowingly breaking the law." That's right. Old Man and the others' families are all officials in the imperial court. When they see this, they can't just ignore it. Furthermore, There are rumors that some people on this mountain have come up with something that offends the heavens and reason. How can we just sit by and watch? Each of these people was more eloquent than the other. Even old Ma, who had been on the battlefield for a long time, wanted to chop them up with a knife. At this moment, it had already become a three-sided battle. On one hand, the members of these aristocratic clans were criticizing Jia Eru and the others, accusing them of being rude and uncouth, and that they shouldn't treat the commoners in such a manner. On the other hand, the group of people that the aristocratic clans had found were even more arrogant at this moment, loudly berating Zhang Feng and the White Deer Institute. It was as if in their eyes, this mountain was as terrifying as Avicii. There was also another side that stood on the college's side. As soon as these people spoke, the people from the aristocratic families would step forward and ask about the phosphate fertilizer and the poison that could harm people's lives. They would also ask why they didn't hand it over. It was obvious that they wanted to force the people on the mountain to hand over the phosphate fertilizer to them. How could they not be able to see these things? Yu Qigong, who was standing on the second floor of the restaurant, wanted to rush down and kill them several times. This was 2F** King infuriating. Anyone who wasn't a fool could tell that someone was targeting Zhang Feng. The Tang family, the Mi family, the Bai family, and the Gao family were doing very well. Lao Tzu wanted to see how hard their heads were. Yu Qigong clenched his fists tightly. He tilted his head and said to the general behind him, "Hurry up and send a letter to the emperor. Tell him exactly what happened here. Also, Lao Tzu wants to kill someone." Chapter 1366. On the mountain, Zhang Feng was very anxious and depressed at this time. He had already heard the horn at the foot of the mountain just now. However, this damn old Nyo had been following him since he came. He even followed him to the toilet. This made Zhang Feng very depressed. Originally, he wanted to go down the mountain to have a look. It was reasonable to say that if there was no urgent matter, this horn would not be blown, although he did not know the meaning of this horn. However, the moment the horn sounded, all the security guards on the mountain, as well as the guards on the mountain, gathered nervously in an instant and then ran to the mountain gate. Zhang Feng knew that something big must have happened at the foot of the mountain. He had been uneasy today, but he could not explain it. At this time, old Nyo was following behind him. How could this not make him more upset? At this time, Zhang Feng was ready to go to Yu Shernan and the others to see what was going on. Since the horn sounded, these people had disappeared. Li Changqian and the others hid in the mountain. After Sun Simiao saw Zhang Feng, he sighed and also went up the mountain. Nominally, he was taking them to familiarize with the characteristics of some medicinal materials, but who knew what they were doing? At this time, Zhang Feng wanted to go out, but when he saw Nyo Jinda squatting at the door, he simply went back to the bedroom angrily. Jing Shu also saw Zhang Feng's worry, and she also heard the horn at the foot of the mountain. She seemed to understand something, but Nyo Jinda was there, so she could not say anything. At this time, seeing Zhang Feng so anxious, Jing Shu whispered in Zhang Yuyao's ear. Zhang Yuyao opened her eyes wide and said, "Will this work? Sister Yuyao, trust me this time." Zhang Yuyao heard, looked at Zhang Feng, then bit her lips and went out. As soon as she went out, Zhang Yuyao looked at Nyo Jinda and said, "Brother Nyo." Alas, Nyo Jinda was an uncouth man. He had always been fearful of women, especially the women of his brothers. When he saw that Zhang Yuyao was about to leave, he hurriedly opened the door and asked, "Younger sister Yuyao, where are you going?" Zhang Yuyao pursed her lips and said, "Young master originally wanted to go to the mountain to pick some herbs for young master Xiaonyo, but I don't know what's wrong with him today, so he simply gave me the prescription and asked me to find Dr. Sun and ask him to help pick some herbs. However, I don't know much about the situation in the mountain. Can I trouble big brother Nyo to take me there?" If it was any other day, he could have just waved his hand and called a guard over. However, he couldn't do that now as all the guards had left. At this time, he definitely couldn't go. Seeing Nyo Jinda hesitate, Zhang Yuyao whispered, "Prince Zhang is asleep. If you don't believe me, why don't you go and take a look?" "No, no, no." Nyo Jinda waved his hands repeatedly. It was a good thing that Zhang Feng could fall asleep. He also wished that Zhang Feng could sleep until nighttime. Moreover, Niu Jinda didn't doubt Zhang Yuyao's words. After all, Zhang Feng must be asleep at this time every day. No matter what day it was, it would be unshakable. However, out of caution, although Niu Jinda said that he wouldn't look, he still went to take a look at Zhang Feng. Seeing that he was really sleeping soundly, he was relieved. Fine. Then I'll go with you. However, I'm only going with you. I'll come back when I deliver it. Niu Jinda had long wanted to go down the mountain to see how things were going. Unfortunately, he had a mission to complete. He couldn't go. However, at this time, Zhang Feng was asleep. If he went down the mountain to take a look, it should be fine, right? Moreover, if he didn't send Zhang Yuyao over now, it would inevitably arouse their suspicions. Moreover, Zhang Feng had never used any kind of medicine on Niu Jinhu's leg. This sudden use of medicine also made Niu Jinda unusually hesitant. He wanted to see what kind of medicine Zhang Feng was going to use. Thus, he simply found a mule and personally pulled it. He hurried in the direction Sun Simiao and the others went. After the two of them left for a cup of tea's time, Zhang Feng, who was sleeping soundly, suddenly opened his eyes. He looked at Jing Shu and asked, "Gone. Gone. You're really my good wife." Zhang Feng excitedly spat on Jing Shu's face. He hurriedly put on his boots and clothes and hurried out of the door. As soon as he went out, Zhang Feng searched for a while before he found Shiwa and Gao Ken in Sun Simiao's villa. He was surprised to see the two of them squatting in front of a medicine furnace. However, the furnace wasn't lit. This made Zhang Feng ask in surprise, "What are you doing?" One of the two was Zhang Feng. He hurriedly said, "Dr. Sun asked us to watch the medicine furnace. He said that we have to wait for him to soak it for 2 hours. Moreover, we can't let the things inside escape." Zhang Feng was confused. What was this? What medicine? Out of curiosity, Zhang Feng opened the medicine pot. However, he found that there were actually a few loaches jumping around in the medicine pot. At this moment, Zhang Feng suddenly thought of many things. He couldn't help but think of the abnormal state of these people at the foot of the mountain. He shouted, "Not good! Quickly come down the mountain with me." Something happened at the foot of the mountain. Chapter 1367. Zhang Feng wasn't a fool. Now that he saw such a situation, he would be a fool if he didn't know that something had happened at the foot of the mountain. Moreover, these people were all hiding it from him. Gao Kan and Shiva were also shocked when they saw the situation. At first, they also felt that there was a problem. Those guards and security guards, after hearing the strange sound of the horn, disappeared almost instantly. At this time, Sun Simiao actually asked them to come here to simmer the medicine. This was simply unreasonable. Dr. Sun had a medicine boy, and such an important thing could wait until he finished his business at the top of the mountain to simmer the medicine. Why didn't he let others come, but only the two of them? They were personally appointed by Zhang Feng as his followers. At this time, they were sent away. Something big must have happened. At this time, Gao Ken didn't say anything. He picked up Zhang Feng, carried him on his back, and flew towards the direction of the mountain gate. The group of students were all stunned by this scene. They didn't know what happened today, but when the horn sounded at the foot of the mountain, all the teachers ran away. They only left some homework for them to review. At this time, when they saw the dean acting like this, the students realized that the security guards on the mountain, as well as the guards who usually didn't say a word, suddenly disappeared. Zhang Feng didn't care about these people. At this time, he couldn't care less. Gao Ken was tall and strong. Coupled with his physical fitness, even if he was carrying Zhang Feng, he still ran very fast. Shiva, on the other hand, was in a miserable state. He could only follow behind and run madly. The three of them, one in front and one behind, ran down the mountain like the wind. As soon as they reached the mountain gate, Zhang Feng was shocked by the faint noise coming from the foot of the mountain. Looking at the mountain, it was already filled with the group of guards that used to be on the mountain. On the road up the mountain, there were even groups of guards and veterans stationed there. It seemed like they were guarding against something coming up the mountain. Zhang Feng was a little puzzled. But when those people saw that Zhang Feng wanted to go down the mountain, they hurriedly tried to stop him. But at this time, Gao can only listen to Zhang Feng's orders. Anyone who dared to block him was basically pushed aside by him. And when the crowd saw Zhang Feng's actions, they had no choice but to make way for the three people to go down the mountain. The closer they got to the foot of the mountain, the louder the noise became. Faintly, Zhang Feng could also hear the sounds of quarreling. Zhang Feng's appearance instantly attracted the attention of the people at the foot of the mountain. However, when Zhang Feng arrived at the mountain gate, the group of security guards refused to let him pass. They guarded the gate tightly. Zhang Feng was so angry that he grabbed the collar of a security guard who was taller than him and said, "Are you going to move or not?" As he spoke, the man said bitterly, "Director, there was a murder case at the foot of the mountain just now. A group of troublemakers came for you. Now the people from the county government and the military camp are here. Please don't go down the mountain. If something happens..." "What did you say? There was a murder case? What's going on?" Zhang Feng felt uneasy. At this time, when he heard this, he instantly understood everything. Without waiting for the man to answer, he asked anxiously, "Who died? Tell me." The guard was even more bitter at this time. But at this time, the people at the foot of the mountain seemed to have seen Zhang Feng and instantly burst into a burst of screams. "Look! That bastard Zhang Feng has come out. Get out. Motherf asterisk cur. Come out. F asterisk CK your mother. You have the ability to do things, but you don't have the ability to admit it, right? If you don't tell me the bad things you have done today I'll set fire." Bang! That voice, with a muffled sound, came to an abrupt end, but it aroused more angry curses. At this time, even Jia Eru, Old Ma, and the others could no longer control it. In addition, with these families fanning the flames and adding fuel to the fire, they couldn't do anything even if they wanted to. Zhang Feng also saw the old village chief and Old He in the crowd. Old He and the old village chief were more miserable. At this time, Old He's face was disheveled, and there were even dried scabs all over his face. The old village chief's beard was mostly gone, as if it had been torn off by someone. Zhang Feng was so angry that his whole body was trembling. He took out the three-pronged bayonet from his arms and pointed it at the security guard's neck. He coldly shouted, "Get out of the way!" The security guard saw that things were already out of control. At this time, Zhang Feng was in a rage. While he was puzzled, Gao Can unexpectedly punched him in the neck. In an instant, his vision turned black and he fainted. Taking advantage of this gap, Gao Can carried Zhang Feng and jumped over the fence of the mountain gate. Old He and Old He also noticed Zhang Feng. When they saw the situation at the gate, they hurried to the mountain gate and surrounded Zhang Feng behind them, telling him not to come forward. Jia Eru and the others instantly gave up the confrontation in front of them and hurried to Zhang Feng to form a battle formation in front of him. At this time, the bows in their hands were already on the string again. Zhang Feng didn't care about these. Looking at Old He and the old village chief, he hurriedly asked, "What's going on? Who died?" It would be better if he didn't ask. Once he asked, the old village chief sobbed and pointed to the fork in the road to the paper mill. "Feng Zi, this old man has let you down. I didn't take good care of Wan Li." While speaking, the old village chief was ready to kneel down. Zhang Feng's face sank and hurriedly helped the old village chief up. His eyes instantly turned red and asked, "What happened to Wan Li?" "Wan Li, Wan Li, Wan Li is sad. These bastards smashed half of his head." Buzz. Chapter 1368. Zhang Feng felt like his head was about to explode. Chen Wanli is dead? How could this be? He had just seen Chen Wanli last night. How could this be? How did he die? Zhang Feng looked as if he wanted to eat someone. When the Tang family and the others saw this, they smiled and looked at Zhang Feng, wanting to see what he was going to do. If Zhang Feng killed someone in a fit of anger, that would be even better. The group of ruffians was waiting for Zhang Feng. Seeing Zhang Feng like this, they clamored even louder. The woman with the broken arm was like a pig being slaughtered. She roared crazily and screamed miserably, but she did not dare to step forward. Everyone was afraid of death. No one was not afraid. Although they had already taken enough money and food, Zhang Feng's reputation was still there. Although they did not know what the poisonous thing Zhang Feng had created was, their intuition told them that it would be something good. Otherwise, Sun Simiao would not have done that. But in the face of hunger and money, they still chose to come here and cause trouble. And the most important thing was, those big clans had all said that they would take responsibility for this matter with Kong Ingda. Moreover, even if someone died at this time, it would be a mistake. Could it be that Zhang Feng wanted to kill someone in front of everyone? Moreover, these people from the big clans had said that even if Zhang Feng were to come up with something that could produce 1,000 caddies per mu of land, they would be the first ones to get it. This was their reward. This was something that everyone in this era knew. Every time something good came out, the big clans would be the first to use it. The common people could only look at it. Who would really be on their side? Their life and death depended on the breath of these people. At this time, seeing that the main character had come out, it was time for them to show off. How could they not shout even louder? Zhang Feng listened carefully to the two people's narration, and the Mitsubishi army knife in his hand clenched even tighter. Let's go. Follow me to take a look at Wanli. As they spoke, Zhang Feng and Gao Can took a step forward. What could old Ma and Jia Eru say when they saw this? He had no choice but to be on guard while clearing the way. Zhang Feng, that brat was killed by you. If you hadn't made that poison, how could he have died? Yes, that brat deserved to die. If not for Gao Can, shut him up. Zhang Feng didn't wait for that person to finish speaking. He pointed at the fiercest person and shouted. But before Gao Can could say anything, a cold arrow pierced towards the person who had just spoken. The arrow flashed twice on that person's forehead, and that person instantly fell straight to the ground. The clamoring crowd instantly froze. Some people were terrified. One after another, they retreated one after another. Although some people were terrified, they didn't want to retreat. They had no choice because they were involved in the beating and killing just now. If they retreated now, they wouldn't be able to escape when the time came to settle the score. At this time, looking at Zhang Feng's expression, it seemed that the dead brat was very important to Zhang Feng. The people of the Tang, Bai, Mi, and Gao families were originally a little excited, but they also faintly realized that something was wrong. Originally, they were looking forward to Zhang Feng taking action. That way, they would have something to use against Zhang Feng. But now, it seemed that things were a little out of control. At this time, their faces were a little uncertain. Zhang Feng didn't pay attention to these people. Instead, he directly squeezed through the crowd and came to the straw mat. At this time, the blood was still flowing. Zhang Feng lifted the straw mat with trembling hands. The next moment, when he saw Qian Wanli's eyes that were still open and his right eye exploded, he couldn't hold back the anger in his chest. Old Ma! Here. Zhang Feng took out the blood jade hairpin that sealed Lang Jusu, then took out a token to enter the imperial city and handed it to old Ma. Quickly go and find Niu Weili. Tell him to take this to the emperor and tell him that Lao Tzu is going to start a massacre today. Old Ma was stunned. He didn't know the origin of this blood jade. But at this time, when he heard Zhang Feng's words, old Ma hurriedly said, Dean, you can't. Zhang Feng's eyes were red. Can't what? Zhang Feng grabbed old Ma's collar and pressed him in front of Qian Wanli's body. He shouted, Don't tell me he died for nothing? These damn bastards. How can they keep insulting us? Can't Lao Tzu say a word? If the one who died was your brother, what would you do? Go. I don't want to say it a second time. At this time, the ruffians and the others were also panicking. They hurriedly looked back and saw that the people from the big families still didn't say anything. Instead, they frowned and winked at them. Although they were afraid, there was no turning back now. Another strange voice came from the crowd. Oh, you want to kill someone? You're just a small viscount. Do you think you're worthy of the emperor's attention? Whoosh! The response was still an arrow. In an instant, the whole scene was silent. Only the person who was not completely dead was still struggling on the ground. Zhang Feng didn't want to talk nonsense anymore. He carried Qian Wanli and moved Qian Wanli's body to the statue at the entrance of the academy with old He and the others. He ordered, Guards, guard that place with your lives. Kill anyone who dares to touch his body. Chapter 1369. Zhang Feng, Don't go too far. That kid was just a mistake. If you continue to kill like this, aren't you afraid of death? Kid, this is all a misunderstanding. You have to make things clear first. Search. Just as someone shouted out again, the sound of an arrow hitting the ground caused everyone's expression to change. Zhang Feng sat in front of the statue, lit a cigarette, and sat in front of Qian Wanli, smoking while playing with the Mitsubishi Army knife in his hand. He did not look at the crowd, nor did he care about anyone. At this time, on the mountain, Yu Shinan and the others hurried down the mountain when they heard that Zhang Feng had gone down the mountain. After seeing Qian Wanli's body and the current situation, everyone's head buzzed in an instant. Stop! All of you stop for old man. Don't kill anymore. Zhang Feng was very angry at this time. He did not like to find trouble, nor did he like to cause trouble. But these days, there were always people who wanted to find trouble for him, especially those invisible hands. He could not bear it. What's more, this group of bastards still wanted to force him. How could he not know what these people were doing? It was nothing more than wanting to get benefits from him. As for what benefits, was there a need to say? It was definitely the phosphate fertilizer that could increase production. He had not done anything yet, and this kind of thing had already happened. What would happen in the future? At this time, Yu Shinan and the others went down the mountain. In a flash, these hooligans found an outlet to vent their anger. Each and every one of them cursed Zhang Feng. Some were even about to throw stones at him, but Jia Eru personally picked up a bow in his hand and stopped them. Yu Shinan and the others also understood the cause and effect of the matter from Cripple Wang, as well as those angry people and merchants. For a moment, they were also very angry and did not know how to deal with this matter. At this time, seeing that the situation had reached a stalemate, the Tang family's people felt that the time was right. They hurried forward and said, "Mr. Bo Sure." Mr. Tang bowed elegantly and said, "Mr. Bo Sure, as you can see, we don't know the cause of the incident. No one really knows what is going on. But the incident of someone being poisoned on the mountain was seen by everyone in Chong and City." Yu Shinan gloomily looked at the youth surnamed Tang and asked, "What are you trying to say?" The young man with the surname Tang waved his folding fan and said indifferently, "We just happened to go up the mountain and ran into this general. He was arresting people and beating people up, so we couldn't stand it and wanted to argue with him. However, this general and this Prince Zhang seemed to be unreasonable. They killed people on sight. Look at the corpses on the ground. They were all alive just a moment ago. And look at that woman. She only heard that her husband was working on the mountain, but she didn't see him for a long time. She also didn't find him, so she wanted to argue with him. However, her arm was broken by the person behind you. I think this seems to be the cause of the incident, right? This woman wanted to go up the mountain to look for her husband, but she was obstructed by many people. Women are always a little talkative, but it seems a little unreasonable to break someone's arm so openly. So these people couldn't stand it and went forward to argue. In the end, they were insulted by the dead young man. You may not know the identity of this young man. He is the only son of Hungtong Private Bank, Qian Tong. He has been pampered since he was young. What can he do? You are talking nonsense." Cripple Wang couldn't listen to it anymore. His face was red as he shouted, "Mr. Bo Sure, things are not like what he said at all, and he wasn't even there at that time. How could he know all this? Mr. Bo Sure, you can go and ask those barbarian merchants. You will know." When these people came to the city square, they spread rumors that Feng Zi was making poison and wanted to harm the world. If anyone dares to not believe these things, they will be surrounded and beaten by these people. And there are patrolmen in official uniforms in this city square, but they were kidnapped by these people. You can go and ask them. Everything will be clear. These people are Chong, and hooligans and scoundrels. You are talking nonsense. We are all honest and dutiful people. Today, we came up the mountain to ask if we can go up the mountain to do some errands or to study. Who would have thought that we would be insulted by these people? Mr. Bo Sure, we are innocent. The scene fell into chaos again. Although Yu Shinan and the others were well educated, how could they be a match for these shrews and hooligans? In just a few words, they were speechless. They were so angry that their bodies were trembling. At this moment, Zhang Feng slowly stood up and looked indifferently at the youth surnamed Tang and the others. You are all sensible people. Stop pretending. I know why you are here. Tell me, what do you want? Hearing this, everyone quieted down instantly. But in the next moment, this group of hooligans and shrews demanded an exorbitant price. If you don't have 10,000 taels of gold today, I will report this to the emperor. That's right. My brother was killed by them. This matter can't be forgotten. We want Zhang Feng to get out of Shao Mountain. This Shao Mountain belongs to us. How can we allow you to act rashly here? Zhang Feng was still unmoved by this. He only looked at the youth surnamed Tang and the others. After the time it took to finish a meal, these people slowly stopped talking. Zhang Feng sneered and said, I have a lot of money. I have more than 300,000 taels of gold. I also have a lot of food. Even if you want my academy, Zhang Feng will give it to you. But before we talk about this, let's settle our accounts. You killed my brother first and disturbed the order of White Deer College. How do you want to settle this account? You beat people indiscriminately and wantonly framed me, Zhang Feng. How do you want to settle this? As long as you have evidence, Zhang Feng, will plead guilty. But Zhang Feng took a step forward and looked directly at the youth surnamed Tang and the others. What do you want? Tell me, are you thinking about my phosphate fertilizer formula? Chapter 1370. This time, the young master of the Tang family, as well as the members of the Mi family, Bai family, and Gao family were all shocked. Those who were already arguing also stopped abruptly. Wasn't this what they all wanted? However, the young man surnamed Tang was quite capable and naturally knew a little about these things. Therefore, when he heard Zhang Feng's words, he hesitated a little. Yu Shernan and the others' expressions also changed abruptly at this moment. They didn't know why Zhang Feng would say this at this time. They were about to dissuade him when Zhang Feng waved his hand and stopped them. At this time, Zhang Feng was completely in a rage. This was also the first time he was so angry in the Tang dynasty. However, even he didn't know why he was so calm at this time. He had to calm down. Although he had only known Chen Wanli for less than 3 months, Zhang Feng had seen him with the rarest talent in the art of merchants. In time, he would definitely become the most terrifying merchant in the entire Tang dynasty. Zhang Feng also intended to cultivate him. After all, although Zhang Feng had never seen Lao Li and the others' businesses, Zhang Feng could tell from the actions of Li Gan and Shan Tinyu that their interests and hobbies didn't lie in the business at all. However, Lao Li and the others were his brothers. This made Zhang Feng think about the future. Chen Wanli was the best person to help Lao Li and help him spread his business all over the world in the future. It was no exaggeration to say that the wisdom of Lao Li and the others in the business world combined was not even 1/10 of Chen Wanli's. The reason why Zhang Feng wanted to conquer Chotzi City was to consolidate the Tang dynasty's strategic position in the future. It was also the place that Zhang Feng wanted to build the business throat of the Tang dynasty. The best and most qualified person was Chen Wanli. Moreover, after interacting with Chen Wanli, he had already regarded Chen Wanli as his own brother. How could Zhang Feng not be angry when his own brother was killed for no reason? If this spread, how could Zhang Feng continue to live in the world? Where would Zhang Feng put his face? How would the world view him? Today's incident also sounded an alarm for Zhang Feng. The people he wanted to protect were only these people. If the one who died today was his brother, what would he do? If the one who died today was Li Qian, how could he face Lao Li? Today's events gave Zhang Feng an impulse to intimidate his brother. For the sake of his brother, for the sake of the responsibility in his heart, for the sake of calling him master, for the sake of being the dean, and for the sake of being a man. Therefore, Zhang Feng was extremely reluctant to use a method that he did not want to use. That was the token that Lao Li gave him previously. It was a pass to enter and exit the palace. Although he knew that Lao Li must have given it to him because the emperor wanted to see him, Zhang Feng was not prepared. Although he wanted to see the emperor, he was still very afraid. Moreover, this was not the best time to see the emperor, so Zhang Feng chose not to see him. However, it was different now. This involved several aristocratic families. In addition, he wanted to kill people today. It was impossible for this matter not to alarm the emperor. If he took the initiative, it would be fine. However, since these people dared to cause trouble today, they must have been prepared. At this moment, these people were probably kneeling in front of the emperor to impeach him, right? If that was the case, then why did Lao Tzu wait for your people to come? Lao Tzu personally sent you on your way. Therefore, Zhang Feng used the blood jade that old man Li gave him. In history, there were very few records of this blood jade. Moreover, the information was very incomplete. If Zhang Feng did not see the words wolf seal, Zhang Feng would not dare to believe that this Rui hairpin and long blood jade that was like a sharp sword was the Dark Han dynasty's commander's seal. This was also what old man Li said when he gave it to him. As long as he held this item, no one in the world could touch him. This was also the reason why Zhang Feng had no choice but to use this today. After all, today he wanted to kill all these troublemakers to avenge his brothers. Zhang Feng was not a reckless man. However, in terms of emotions, Zhang Feng was very impulsive. After all, he was a transmigrator. The feeling of being a stranger in a foreign land made him feel very lonely. If he could not even protect his brothers and friends at this time, how could he talk about what to do in the future? It was better to disperse earlier, far away in the distance. Li Changqian, Niu Jinda, and the rest stood at the mountain gate. They looked straight at Zhang Feng. They seemed to be anticipating and worried. After all, none of them knew what Zhang Feng was doing. They did not know if Zhang Feng was really angry or if he really wanted to stop and keep the peace. However, at this moment, someone could not wait any longer. Li Changqian suddenly said, "Niu Jijia, I order you to immediately give the order to capture these people. You must not let them make any demands." Chapter 1371. Chang Chumo and the others, who had the most explosive tempers, couldn't wait any longer. At this moment, they were eager to try. If Niu Jinda nodded, they would instantly rush out. But Niu Jinda actually couldn't wait any longer. After all, Zhang Feng was his family's savior. But it was also because of this that he was even more calm. Everything that Zhang Feng had done before, which one of them was methodical. Although Li Chengqian's words were very correct, as long as he exposed his identity or used other methods to stop Zhang Feng, today's matter would be temporarily resolved. But he knew that although this matter could be forcefully suppressed today, gossip was a fearful thing. Otherwise, old man Yuqi, who was hiding in the dark, would have already made his move. Why wait until now? Young Master Li, let's wait first. Feng Zi naturally has his own way of dealing with this. Niu Jinda finally said. Especially the three words, young Master Li. Li Chengqian's eyes were scarlet red as he stared at Zhang Feng, somewhat unable to control his emotions. Niu Jinda, this prince orders you to quickly kill these people for this prince. This prince will bear the consequences alone. Li Changqian. Niu Jinda finally exploded. With a gloomy face, he shouted in a low voice, "Do you still remember what your father said? Without the emperor's decree, no one is allowed to expose their identity. Have you thought about the consequences if your identity is really exposed today? The emperor and the crown prince are personally cultivating their own forces in Mount E. If this were to spread, it would cause unrest in the entire imperial court. Have you thought about this? Moreover, the emperor should already know about the current situation. The emperor didn't send an order, which means that the emperor wants Feng Zi to deal with it himself. Also, do you see the person lying there? Yesterday he was still one of you and also Feng Zi's brother. Have you thought about what Feng Zi would think if we were to interfere?" While speaking, Niu Jinda kneeled on one knee and cupped his fist, solemnly saying, "Your Highness, please calm down." While speaking, Niu Jinda looked around. Wei Shuyu and the others all knelt down in shock. "Your Highness, please calm down." All of this was short-lived, and everyone was talking in low voices. Coupled with the noise at this time, everyone was attracted by Zhang Feng, so no one noticed. But so what if they did notice? Li Changqian was the son of the second master Lao Li that the emperor made up. He was also the second shopkeeper of the Li Chamber of Commerce. It was natural for them to kneel. Under normal circumstances, it wouldn't attract too much attention. At this moment, his chest was still heaving up and down. However, when he heard the word emperor, he slowly relaxed, but his eyes were still fixed on Zhang Feng. At this moment, after discussing with the other families, the young man surnamed Tang said with a fake smile, "Prince Zhang, President Zhang, we really don't know about today's matter, and we don't know the cause. But we do know that the cause is whether the phosphate fertilizer is poisonous or not. As long as Prince Zhang can prove that it's not poisonous, then today's matter will be easy to deal with." Zhang Feng was so angry that he laughed. He faintly grinned, revealing his white teeth, and asked, "Then, in your opinion, what should I do? What if I don't agree?" The young man surnamed Tang spread out his hands and said, "If Prince Zhang doesn't take it out, then there's nothing we can do. Just now, we saw clearly that these soldiers, as well as the people from the Prince Zhang Academy, killed people in public. According to the laws of the Tang dynasty, those who kill should be killed. Even if Prince Zhang doesn't know about this, I'm afraid that Prince Zhang and his family will be banished to the frontier and will never be able to go back to the capital. If Prince Zhang really takes out the evidence, then we will definitely dissuade all of this and announce to the world that these are all rumors." Zhang Feng heard this and couldn't help but laugh. Yu Shernan and the others couldn't hold it in anymore. They all denounced the young man surnamed Tang and the others. Jiaeru even brandished his sword and was about to chop them down. But in the end, they were all stopped by Zhang Feng. If Gaokan hadn't stopped them, the young man surnamed Tang might have been killed on the spot. The young man surnamed Tang and the others saw Zhang Feng's reaction and couldn't figure out what Zhang Feng was thinking. They hurriedly said, "Zhang Feng, you have to think it through clearly. Even though you're a viscount and the chancellor of White Deer Academy, you're still young in the end. Moreover, your position is too low. All of us are important officials in the court, so you have to think it through." Zhang Feng stopped laughing. Instead, his expression gradually turned cold. He stared coldly at the young man surnamed Tang and said indifferently, "Do you think you're worthy? You?" The young man surnamed Tang's expression suddenly changed. He said in an extremely cold voice, "You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Good, very good. We won't interfere in today's matter, and we will truthfully report everything you've done today to the Emperor." Wait. Chapter 1372. At this moment, Shiva hurriedly squeezed forward. Zhang Feng was about to stop him, but Shiva winked at him to reassure him. Tang and the others were here for the phosphate fertilizer and other things. Now that someone had admitted defeat, and it was one of Zhang Feng's people, Zhang Feng did not stop him. He seemed to think that Zhang Feng had admitted defeat only because of his reputation. That was why he called for a scapegoat. However, Shiva's action shocked Yu Shernan and the others. They hurriedly scolded him. "Shiva, back off. Don't speak nonsense. Shiva, this is not the place for you to mess around. Let Fengzi handle everything. Back off." At this moment, Li Chengqian and the others also rushed over and hurriedly dissuaded him. "Fengzi, if it's inconvenient for you, let me do it. That's right, back off. Watch me tear this little bastard to shreds. Fengzi, let me do it." However, Zhang Feng waved his hand and said, "Let him do it." Shiva was the prince of Jinla. Zhang Feng was not worried about his eloquence. As for Li Chengqian, he was stopped by Zhang Feng. What a joke. With Li Chengqian's temper, he was far from being a match for Tang. As for the others, forget it. If they said something wrong, they would immediately attack. This would only make things worse. As for Du Dabing, although he was eloquent, and Zhang Feng had seen his mouth before, what kind of place was this? If he said something wrong, there would be a big mess. Zhang Feng didn't dare to let him come. As for Shiva's initiative to step forward at this moment and even gave him a reassuring look, Zhang Feng was a little surprised. He seemed to have just remembered that although this guy was a little silly, he did not seem to have shown his talent. Besides, how bad could it be? He was going to kill someone today. He did not care. When the young man with the surname Tang and the others heard Shiva's name, they looked at Shiva in astonishment and said, I've long heard that the crown prince of Jinla went up the mountain to study. Could it be that you're the prince of Jinla? Shiva laughed coldly. That's me. However, today is not the time for you to make friends with me. If it was before today, or if you didn't die today, this prince would have wanted to get to know you. Oh! Without waiting for Tang to finish his sentence, Shiva continued, Today, my teacher is a little angry because of what happened to my brother. Therefore, as his student, it is better for me to say some things. To put it bluntly, these people were all found by you. Your purpose is actually for the phosphate fertilizer, isn't it? You're lying. How can we associate ourselves with these vulgar servants? We are of noble status. How could we do such a despicable thing? You're just a little country prince. What qualifications do you have to judge us? Step down. The anger of the Tang family and the others did not make Shiva cower. Instead, he said firmly, You found the wrong person to ask about what you want today. This phosphate fertilizer is actually produced by me. Why don't you ask me? As the crown prince of a country, I can guarantee that although this phosphate fertilizer was poisonous in the beginning, do you know what the masks on your mouths are for? Don't tell me you didn't use your pig brains to ask and think about it when you got this thing. This is something used to prevent poisoning when extracting the phosphate fertilizer. The reason it is extracted is to extract something useful from this poison. As he spoke, Shiva turned around to look at the group of troublemakers behind him and said, Do you think you'll get the phosphate fertilizer you want by doing this today? You're thinking too much. I don't know what benefits you've obtained before today, but I can say that this money is the money you've earned by selling your lives. After today, regardless of whether my teacher and the imperial court do anything to you, the people who bought your lives will not let any of you off. What? Everyone exclaimed in shock. Some people couldn't help but ponder slightly. The expressions of the youth surnamed Tang and the others suddenly changed. Don't listen to his nonsense. We definitely didn't think that way. Oh, Shiva smiled and said, Are you admitting that you're the one who hired these people? This time, the youth surnamed Tang finally realized that he had been tricked. He was so angry that his face turned pale. Son of a bitch, who do you think you are? Do you think you're qualified to stir up trouble? Whether it's true or not, you're an outsider. You're not allowed to meddle in the affairs of the Tang dynasty. In the morning court tomorrow, old man will definitely impeach you, Zhangfeng, for allowing outsiders to study the classics. Do you know that the laws of the Tang dynasty clearly state that outsiders are not allowed to study the classics? Just you wait, old man. Zhangfeng smiled coldly. He glanced at Shiva and didn't make a sound. Yushernan and the others also looked at Shiva with some surprise. They really didn't notice this kid. They didn't expect him to be so meticulous. Shiva said unhurriedly, Then I'll have to trouble you to inform the emperor. I've already received the emperor's approval before coming here. I'm not here as a student, but as a servant. I'm now President Zhangfeng's servant. Chapter 1373. This play. It was out of Mr. Tang's expectations. He originally thought that he could use this matter to turn the tables, but he did not expect that he was allowed to come here by the emperor's permission. What's more, he was actually Zhangfeng's errand boy. This made things a little difficult for him. However, he immediately thought of a solution. Are you deliberately trying to lure us into a trap? We're only here to deal with the phosphate fertilizer. We have no interest in your business. That's right, kid, since you said that you were in charge of refining the phosphate fertilizer. Well, have you seen with your own eyes that this thing can really double the income of the Zhuang family? Why hasn't there been any record of this thing in any book since ancient times, or even in the unofficial history? Don't talk nonsense. If there is, doesn't that mean that Zhang Feng deliberately didn't take it out? He was waiting for this year's locust plague and food shortage to happen. All these things were done on purpose. That's right. Lao Tzu had long realized that something was wrong. How could his shabby little tavern have so much money? How could he stock up so much food before the disaster happened? This is clearly a conspiracy. As they spoke, the people from the other families were furious. They raised their arms and shouted, Fellow villagers, did you see that? This person is so vicious. If he had such a thing, why didn't he take it out earlier? Why did he wait until now to take it out? This means that this kid already knew about the locust plague and the food shortage. This is all part of this kid's conspiracy. He's trying to set us up. This time, everyone was in an uproar. Even the onlookers, as well as those who still believed in Zhang Feng and those hooligans, were a little confused. Why didn't they hear about this from the beginning? And why didn't Zhang Feng mention this before the food shortage started? Why did he have to wait until now? Most importantly, why did Zhang Feng stock up on food? No matter how they looked at it, it seemed to be intentional. This was a conspiracy. However, at this moment, the people of Tong Huifang and the Chong and people who were beaten up by those people were furious. *T. Even if I told you earlier, would you believe that the food shortage is real? If Prince Zhang had told you earlier, would you have believed him? Idiots, fools. You're all just a bunch of ingrates. If it wasn't for Zhang Feng's life-saving food, I'm afraid all of you would have starved to death by now. How can I allow you to stay here? Look at this bunch of bastards. What did they do during the famine? They deliberately raised the price of food. Even if His Majesty ordered them to help the victims, what did they take out? It's rancid rice bran. You bastards. You've been tricked and you're still counting money for him? The battle lasted for 4 hours. It was only when Sun Simiao angrily stepped forward that they finally stopped. As for those large clans, when they saw Sun Simiao come out, they were even more enraged. After all, if Sun Simiao didn't show up, they could still do something. But now that Sun Simiao showed up, how could these hoodlums dare to act rashly? Elder Sun, a middle-aged man in his 50s from the Bai clan, stepped forward and bowed to Sun Simiao, but Sun Simiao acted as if he didn't see him. He snorted coldly and returned to Zhang Feng's side, saying, "Old man's herb garden uses phosphate fertilizer. You said it's poisonous? Were you blind 2 days ago? Didn't you go to the East Market entrance? Old man, do you remember that you saw it that day? And the purpose of your visit today is to force Zhang Feng to hand over the formula. Why do you have to be so dignified? But old man said it today. If you want this thing, you'll have to go through old man first." The Bai clan's people were embarrassed. Hearing Sun Simiao's words, they could only stiffen their necks and say, "Elder Sun, you've been deceived by this kid. This kid obviously has a big conspiracy. Can't you see it? Shut up, you bastard. Lao Tzu has long disliked you. What conspiracy does my master have? Why don't you tell us? I think it's you bastards who are jealous of this thing. Today, King killed my brother here. The phosphate fertilizer is easy to deal with. Before we talk about this, let's talk about how to deal with my brother's matter first." At this time, Chang Chumo, Wei Shuyu, and Zhang Sun could no longer sit still. They all jumped up. This time, they said something that they didn't want to hear. They couldn't help but panic. They looked at Sun Simiao, Yu Shernan, and the others, wanting to find a breakthrough from them. However, they found that these people had retreated to the back and were looking at Zhang Feng. At this time, Zhang Feng was holding an unknown thing in one hand and a dagger in the other. He was playing with it. At this time, everyone understood. After saying so much, to put it bluntly, they didn't intend to let them go. At this time, they wanted to leave, but when they turned around, they saw that the densely packed Chong and garrison had surrounded them. There were even more than 100 soldiers wearing golden armor. Golden armor. They were the Jin Wu guards. Could it be that the emperor at this time? The Tang clan, Bai clan, Mi clan, and Gao clan panicked. Zhang Feng, everything today is a misunderstanding. What do you want? Young friend Zhang Feng, we have nothing to do with this today. We just happened to come up the mountain. We will go down the mountain now. How you want to deal with today's matter is your business. We will not say a word to anyone else. President Zhang, this is all a misunderstanding. We can't wait. Chapter 1374. What's going on? This time, the hooligans and shrews panicked. They didn't know what was going on. It looked like they were about to get what they wanted. What's going on? What are you guys doing at this critical juncture? At this time, there was no lack of people with sharp eyes. They saw the garrisons and the soldiers in golden armor in the distance. These people were really... It was hard not to attract attention. This time, the group of people panicked. Motherf asterisk Kerr, you bastards. Didn't you say it was Lord Kong Ingda who instructed you to do this? Didn't you say that as long as we spread rumors this time, you would take responsibility for anything? Motherf asterisk Kerr. Why are you so scared now? Motherf asterisk Kerr. Say something. Motherf asterisk Kerr. You just gave Lao Tzu 10 strings of cash and you want Lao Tzu's life. What? Didn't you say it was only 5 strings of cash? Why do you have so many? Motherf asterisk Kerr, you scammers. Zhang Feng looked at them coldly. Li Chengqian and the others were also cold and murderous. But Zhang Feng didn't say anything and no one dared to move. At this time, the Gao family couldn't sit still anymore. They hurriedly tried to shirk responsibility. The farce finally came to an end amidst the sharp sound of the wind being torn apart. Whoosh! Poochie! When the voice rang out, everyone was horrified to see that a descendant of a large clan seemed to want to take advantage of the chaos to escape. However, he was shot to death by a distant golden-armored soldier with an indifferent expression. At this time, they all changed into arrows and stared at them indifferently. In an instant, the fear of death made the crowd recognize the reality. This time, some hooligans finally recognized Li Chengqian and the others. Someone shouted in horror, Aren't they the 4 demon kings of Chang'an? They are really in this academy? What? They really are. Oh my God! The news that the 4 great demon kings had gone to White Deer College had spread like wildfire in Chang'an City. However, most people had never seen the 4 great demon kings before, let alone know who they were. Furthermore, it was rumored that the 4 great demon kings couldn't stand the sight of hooligans. Once they saw them, they would beat them to death. Furthermore, it was said that they would never pay for killing someone. This made them take a detour whenever they heard about the 4 great demon kings. How could they know them? Therefore, although they already knew about the rumors about the 4 great demon kings at White Deer College and secretly rejoiced, they had forgotten about it because the 4 great demon kings hadn't shown themselves for a long time. If these people hadn't mentioned it today, how could they have thought of it? Even if they managed to escape today, how would they dare to stay in Chang'an City? Involuntarily, the crowd began to tremble. Some of them could not even stand properly and directly knelt down. When Tang and the others saw this, they were scared out of their wits. Only then did they remember that Zhang Feng had given something to someone. It seemed that he had gone to the palace. Then they thought about how the Jinwu guards had acted so unscrupulously. Could it be? Did the emperor give Zhang Feng the right to kill people? When he thought of this and the people who had tried to escape and were killed, Tang couldn't help but feel his legs and stomach cramps. He no longer had the arrogance he had at the beginning. Prince Zhang, Lord Zhang, President Zhang, Mr. Hsien, everything that happened today was a misunderstanding. We didn't mean anything else. Ha ha! Zhang Feng smiled coldly and slowly stood up. He looked at Tang and the others, then at the hooligans who were trembling in fear. Now you know how to admit defeat? No, no, no. I, Zhang Feng, won't accept it. You should be more firm. That's how a man should be. The members of the Tang, Bai, me, and Gao families all wanted to cry. How could they be firm? They hurriedly came forward to apologize and beg for mercy. Mr. Hsien, as the saying goes, no discord, no concord. Besides, we didn't mean anything else. We just wanted to know if the phosphate fertilizer was real or fake. Now that we know that the phosphate fertilizer can really increase the grain yield, we won't delay any longer. After all, we are all busy. That's right, President Zhang. Our Bai family has always believed in your character. By the way, our Bai family's children have been playing with the basketball you made. Moreover, we've been taking care of the business for everything you've produced. Little friend Zhang Feng, everything that happened today was caused by this kid from the Tang family. If you want to blame someone, blame him. He insisted that we come up the mountain to see if the phosphate fertilizer was real or fake. We saw Dr. Sun's yellow ginger with our own eyes 2 days ago, but this kid said that he wanted to take a look and pay you a visit. That's why we came. Yes, yes, yes. Today, It was all instigated by this little bastard from the Tang family. If you want to blame someone, blame him. We are all innocent. Zhang Feng looked coldly at the clown-like crowd and smiled. Now you want to admit defeat?